I can't remember his name by now, but
He's gone. You got Mike.
Okay.
Mike somebody.
Must
yeah,
work.
there was a study done on how to
Personality.
correct all that.
Yeah.
Personality.
It's just like, you know,
Yes,
you
sir.
put stuff out there as a
Do you want to speak?
school district.
Well, you know, all our new schools are designed not to have any.
You could introduce yourself.
We're certainly doing that.
You could introduce
I'm
yourself.
not really sure what the agenda.
There's a little piece of paper, ask Robbie, there's a little piece of paper, you fill it out, and you just tell us who you are, and I'll call on you, and you, during the open comments, just introduce yourself and, you know, why you're here.
So somebody comes
All
into
right.
the school,
Robbie will do it.
camera, you can say you're on in, you buzz them in. They're locked in.
Yeah, I got a kid at Northwest Guilford High School. I got one at the middle school. My wife, she just retired. She was a teacher for 30 years.
Well, oh, then you know, you've
So,
lived and breathed it.
and here's the best part. Here's the best part of all that.
Before we get this party started, let me remind everyone, if you would like to speak
High school.
before the council, we'd ask you to fill out a card that would let us know who you are and what you'd like to speak about, and it'll give me the opportunity to call on you. I would appreciate it.
Where's my bus? We had like 45, so I only had one bus we could use. I don't know where it's at. So we had to all drive over to, luckily it was Southwest. But I'm like, no. And then when I went over there to get the bus, it was a new bus, and I said, they gave me a clipboard, and I said, well, where's the key? I don't have a key. Well, how do you not have a key to your bus? Well, we just don't have any. So he said, well, drivers have them, and they just haven't turned them back in. And I'm just like, and she literally told me, you just need to find somebody that's got one.
Oh, yeah.
No, to find somebody that's got that particular bus.
Because I ain't get to mine.
And I was like, I don't do this full time. I just do it when the school. Yeah, I was in my.
You may want to do a special on those people. I would call them, if I were you, and see if they don't want to advertise with the Northwest Observer.
Well, I just will have to do that. But first I'll do a taste test.
Absolutely. There is no cake in it.
There is no, okay.
I'd like to call this meeting to order. It is 7 p.m. on July the 13th, 2023. This is a review, Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. For our invocation, please bow your heads. Dear Lord, guide us to this evening. Help us to make the right decisions for our town and our people. And hopefully we can do this in your name. And in this, I do pray. Amen. Review and adopt the agenda. Is there any questions, objections, additions?
I'd like to make an addition, if I may.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make an addition. we can put it wherever, let me get down here. We can put it on new business, I'd like to make an addition to discuss, the town clerk's authority regarding, repairs and maintenance.
Okay, I'll make that 10A.
I'll move to adopt the agenda with that change.
Second?
Any discussion? Mr. Rigsby.
Aye.
Mr. Foy.
Aye.
Mr. Landrith.
Aye.
Mr. Jones.
Aye.
And I am also aye. I'd like to make a motion that we adopt all three of the committee meetings. That is May 11th, 2023, May 11th, 2023, closed session, June 8th, 2023, closed session.
Mr. Mayor, it's always been our practice to do these separately. That would be my preference as an individual council member. I'd like to ask that you.
Is there any conversation? Is there any objection to the way I want to do it?
There's just three. We can do them separately.
Say again?
There's just three sets of minutes. We can do those separately.
I agree.
All right. My motion is to approve the May 11th, 2023 regular town council meeting minutes.
Second?
Okay, I have a second. Is there any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, there's
Yes.
a couple of points I would like to make for the record. On page 4, there was a staff report showing two streams on the property. I attempted to correct Mr. Snyder. The corrections were declined, and there's a statement in here that they were assumed to be underground, but according to records, they exist. I don't see this as a big deal, but on the other hand, if we're going to start down the road of the staff and the town's resources being used to track underground streams unnecessarily, that seems to be the path we own, and I object to that. So I wanted to get that into the record, and then page 11. It is true, I did object to the contract with CJ Builders, and the reason for that was is not in these minutes, and I want to, for whoever may be interested, whoever may be listening, whatever citizen might be interested. My objection was basically because we were voting to have the town attorney prepare a contract that council wasn't going to see, and that I thought that was a stretch too far. It wouldn't be done in any business I've ever been associated with. Perhaps that's the norm in government, I don't know, but I object to that. And that was the reason for my no vote, and I want to make that clear for the record. I'm not going to ask the clerk to go back and change these minutes, but I will be voting no on a set of minutes for that reason.
Any further discussion? Mr. Rigsby?
Aye.
Mr. Foy?
Aye.
Mr. Landrith?
Aye.
Mr. Jones?
Aye.
And I am aye. On the May 11th, 2023 closed session minutes, I make a motion that we adopt those minutes.
I'll second the motion.
Any discussion? Mr. Rigsby?
Aye.
Mr. Foy?
Aye.
Mr. Landrith?
Aye.
Mr. Jones?
Aye.
And I am also aye. On the June 8th, 2023 closed session minutes, I make a motion that we adopt those minutes.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Mr. Rigsby?
Aye.
Mr. Foy?
Aye.
Mr. Landrith?
Aye.
And Mr. Jones?
Aye.
And I am also aye. Let me take a minute right here to welcome our new town clerk, I believe to his very first official meeting in that position. This is Robbie Wagner, and congratulations.
Congrats, Robbie.
Public safety reports. Fire Chief, Mr. Todd, do you have anything to tell us?
Sure, I'll be brief tonight.
We want to hear you.
Good, how are you? Congratulations.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
Good evening, council and citizens. So, our report for the month of June, we ran a total of 79 incidents, 8 which were fire-related, 45 medical, and 26 of the other variety. The good thing is our amount of fire-related incidents for the last 2 months has been down. That's always a good sign. So, real quickly, one thing I want to remind everybody is on July the 25th at 7:30, we have our annual meeting every year. The fire district holds an annual meeting, which board of directors members are elected, and you get a yearly report. So just want to invite everybody that wants to come that night to come to the meeting. And for our safety brief, it's kind of like when we go over just as a reminder about smoke detectors and things like that. I know a lot of people have fire extinguishers in their homes, and that's one of those things that you buy and you have the best intent of it, and you put it up and then you never go back and look at it. So like your detectors and your batteries, just remind you, every once in a while, pull that thing out, make sure that it's in date. It has not lost all the charge in it. So if you need it, and let's hope nobody ever needs it, it will work when you need it. Always familiarize yourself with the instructions on how to use it and what it can be used on, because they can be helpful. But we always recommend that if you're using it, still have someone else call 911, because there's been a reason to pull it out and use it. But just check it and make sure. Nothing worse than having something very small that you may be able to contain with one of those, and it's lost all the pressure on it, so it's no good to you. So if you have them, check them. If you have them, good for you, and hope you never have to use them. Hope everybody has a good evening.
Todd, is there a company you would recommend for recharging these? I think some of them are rechargeable.
Yeah, they are. No, not really. I tell everybody, I used to tell them to go to the phone book, but since we don't have a phone book in Yellow Pages anymore, the easiest thing to do is, you can just go online and Google somebody. And a lot of times, to be honest with you, depending on the size you got, it's probably just as easy to have them to replace it as it is to have them recharge it. So they'll be able to tell you that. It just depends on the type you got and the size.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Have a good evening.
You too. From the Sheriff's Department, we have, for the month of June, the Sheriff's Office reported 197 calls for service in Stokesdale, resulting in 17 case reports. There were no significant crime trends, events in the town in June. On June 5th, the Sheriff's Office took a report of a theft of a skid steer from a construction site on Dock Ridge Road. Patrol deputies made 2 DWI arrests in town limits. Burglary, 2. Disturbance, 7. Alarm, 22. Assault, 1. Domestic, 5. Weapons, 1. Fraud, 2. Crime, 1. Sex crime, 1. Rape, 1. Other, 129. Suspicious, 12. Stolen property, 1. Vandalism, 1. Theft, 3. Traffic, 9. Administrative reports.
All right.
Our new town clerk, Mr. Robbie Wagner.
Yes, thank you. Let's see, so the administrative report, I'll start off with the water report. So this is from Mrs. Hunsucker. We've had 9 meters installed, 56 meters in stock, 10 applications for transfer of service and meters put in, 15 meter applications on hold for builders, 18 work orders, 66 811s, 764 water bills mailed out today, and 7 shelter rentals for July and August. And she is working on updating the backflow maintenance reports. And then for the admin report, town staff submitted a monthly contribution summary information, a CSI report to the North Carolina Retirement System for all of our full-time staff members. Town staff submitted a quarterly financial report and a quarterly performance report to Guilford County for the $3.1 million ARPA grant. Town staff submitted a quarterly financial report and a quarterly performance report to the North Carolina Office of State and Budget Management for the $50,000 Small Town Development Grant, as well as for the $1.1 million House Bill Grant 1163. Town staff submitted the quarterly HubSco report to the Department of Administration. With the help of Justin Snyder from Guilford County Planning, we've requested the publication of a notice of public hearing that's going to set place on July the 27th, 2023 at 7 o'clock here at Town Hall. That's our regular planning board meeting. Town staff has received a site plan for the basketball court and pickleball court project at the town park. One issue that we were having at the park was a pretty substantial hornet's nest. Kellam Exterminators came through and removed that for us. We've successfully vetted a potential vendor for future maintenance services here at Town Hall and the town park. Town staff attended a special budget meeting on the 15th and the 21st of June, and we have finalized those budget documents. This is just a reminder to all the council members to bring your red budget book back so we can update those. Mr. Jones has already done so. Town staff is researching the possibility of advertising legal notices electronically, and it's also time to consider re-enrolling into our Zoom membership. And that's it.
Robbie, I don't know how much we pay on Zoom. It's probably like $20 a month, but I'm not sure how much is it, Kim?
$14.99.
Okay.
About $180 a year.
How much activity are we getting?
Zero. Well, I can't say zero. Let's see. Right now, we have 0 participants, so that's pretty average. The biggest issue that I find with Zoom is since the state of emergency was lifted, voting through Zoom is no longer allowed. So, you know, as a council member, you could view via Zoom, but you can speak as a citizen, but you couldn't speak as a council member or take a vote. So it's kind of a moot thing for council, but I guess it's not a terrible thing for, you know, citizens.
What about Microsoft Teams?
We could certainly use Microsoft Teams. We, all of our email addresses come with a Microsoft Teams subscription. It's free as long as we have a Microsoft email address, which we all do. So,
So from what you're saying is, since we can't vote on, we couldn't vote on Teams either. So,
Correct.
With YouTube streaming, so the citizens still have an avenue to view and watch from home.
absolutely, yeah.
So I would be willing to propose that we just stop using a second streaming service altogether and just continue YouTube and because I'm like you, I don't remember, even if someone has watched it on Zoom, I can't recall anybody speaking on Zoom since we've been doing it in the last year, 2 years.
I did. I got called down.
Oh, no.
Now,
Mr. Ford called me down.
YouTube, can we archive that? Are we archiving that?
So I've looked into that. There's probably a way of doing it. I know YouTube archives it itself. As far as saving it as a video, I haven't found a way to do that yet. I found a way to archive the audio, but the video I just haven't found a way to do yet. I know we can archive YouTube video the YouTube audio to our server. The video, I'm having a hard time figuring out how to archive, but I'm sure there's a way.
We're still doing the backup with the audio.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we've got audio recorded in 3 places: YouTube, Zoom, and the handheld recorder in front of Mayor Crawford.
The Zoom archive?
It does. It does. It archives the audio.
And how long will that archive for?
I guess as long as it's on our shared drive. So as long as that shared drive is updated and backed up on our server. I don't know if there's I mean, as far as, you know, the retention schedule, that's a different thing altogether, but it's there until we delete it, so.
Mr. Wagner, I'm just on, I'm on here now for a previous meeting, and it has a download button. I don't see why we couldn't just download it just like a regular file and
There you go.
save it to the server.
That's fine. Is that on YouTube? Is that on mobile? I've looked at it on desktop. I haven't looked at it mobile, but
I know desktop's a little bit more interactive and maybe confusing, if
Okay.
you would.
yeah,
But yeah, it's definitely on the mobile side that you
Okay.
can.
download the video.
So.
So there you go,
Do we pay annually or do we pay monthly?
monthly.
And we're not in a contract with them.
No,
So why don't you just investigate maybe Microsoft Teams
okay,
doing the
Do
same
that.
thing that Zoom does?
Yeah.
I don't see the point in having Zoom.
correct. Yeah, Microsoft Teams would be at no cost, where Zoom we accrue that cost every month. So yeah, that's fine.
Thanks, Robbie.
No problem.
Under administrative, let me take this time to thank all of those who were concerned about me. I apologize for the meetings that I have missed, but hopefully I'm back in the swing. And I do appreciate your patience, and especially I appreciate our Mayor Pro Tem covering for me. Moving on, is there a planning board? Events committee, got anything?
No.
Property committee?
I'll just run over a couple things. I came up here today, fixed the one sink that was not working, the water. I worked on the door that was jamming. I adjusted the faceplate a little bit. And when it came back about 3 o'clock when the swelling should have been up on the door, and it still was working fine. Also hung the soap dispenser in the bathroom that doesn't have a mirror. I just hung it on the wall with some two-sided tape. It seemed to be sticking when I left, and hung the other soap dispenser on the mirror that had come off. So all the bathrooms should be open at this point.
Good stuff, Jim.
Town Park? Mr. Stevenson?
Good evening. T. Stevenson, 7900 Caraway, Chairman of the Park Improvement Committee. Just wanted to bring up a little bit of a change from the committee meetings now. We had been meeting on a weekly basis. We've now moved that to a bi-weekly. The next meeting is scheduled for next Thursday, the 20th of July at 5:15 here in this room. These are public meetings, so anyone that would like to is welcome to attend. A couple of updates on the progress. The playground equipment has been ordered, and we're waiting for a firm ship date. We still anticipate to receive the equipment and for the installation to be complete before the end of September. So hopefully we're still on track. I have not been notified of any changes to that schedule. We also hope to begin the construction on the basketball and pickleball courts probably by the end of this month. We again hope for the construction of these to be complete probably late fall with that. So looking forward to that. Should be hopefully next month this time. I'll be able to say, look out the window, you'll see some dirt piled up out there. So I'm looking forward to that. We're continuing to discuss how best to go about implementing the plans for the nature trails, and that would be including where they're going to start, where they're going to stop, how they're going to be routed through the natural areas that we do have. In addition, we're looking at what type of surface we may use, whether it just be a loose ground cover or some type of permanent material. At any rate, we're looking for these to be either self-maintaining through, hopefully high use, or certainly low maintenance because we don't have the staff to really be able to go and upkeep these nature trails. We're also thinking that maybe some civic organizations like Scout Troops may take this as a project to help maintain these trails with that. We are looking at more possibilities here. One of the things we are considering is possibly fencing the soccer fields out there for protection and also for control. We know that these soccer fields get a lot of use. A lot of times right now we're seeing that it's so much use that the turf doesn't have time to regenerate and to be ready for the fall season. So we are contemplating the need to try to restrict the use for at least some limited time period to allow the turf to revitalize itself. So those are one of the additional projects that we're looking at. And then we are discussing some additional improvements or changes that will help facilitate the existing facilities that would be more adding some functionality that we're not currently getting out of those. And that's what we've got. Any questions, comments?
Thank you, T.
Thank you, T.
Financial reports, Ms. Thacker?
Good evening. Okay. These numbers are as of 6/30/2023, which will end our fiscal year for '23. The general fund and our ARPA account, we have had $716,865. The Bank of Oak Ridge money market account, $23,539.51. Bank of Oak Ridge CDARS, $2,599,402.94. Fidelity Bank checking, $434,845.07. Petty cash, $150. Our total investment earnings for the fiscal year for general fund year-to-date was $39,444.45, of which $7,695.91 is for the month of June. For the accounts receivables, Gary, our operator and responsible charge, for the salary and FICA due from Water Enterprise account is $876.24. The expenses paid for the month of, for the expenses paid from the general fund credit card for the Water Enterprise due back to general fund is $280.50, and that was for some chemicals. The shared overhead expenses for the month of June reimbursement is $15,582.57. The total for this fiscal year, share overhead expense total is $146,262.61. Our sales tax refund year-to-date is $611.11. The total AR for the month of June is $17,350.42. Total assets for the general fund, and that is including our accounts receivable, is $3,792,152.94. For the month of June, our state retirement for the town of Stokesdale, the town of Stokesdale contributes 12.10%. The month of June is $1,346.64. The total year-to-date is $10,292.97. For the Water Enterprise, the Bank of Oak Ridge CDARS are $508,275.59. Our Capital Reserve Fund is $206,055.51. Fidelity Bank checking is $680,728.56. Fidelity Savings, $45,061.54. The North Carolina Capital Management Trust Fund, $542,964.16. The total investment earnings, interest earned for fiscal year-to-date for the Water Enterprise is $28,417.57, of which $3,546.71 is for the month of June. Accounts receivable for the water sales that include active and inactive, this also includes June billing, is $34,964.80. Our accounts receivable active 90-plus day is 0 accounts. The inactive 90-plus day accounts is which is 25 accounts, is $6,115.64. The sales tax refund due back to the Water Enterprise account is $316.98. Our total assets for the Water Enterprise account is $2,018,367.14. And just to reiterate, the accounts payable for the month of June back to the general fund is this is for the shared overhead expense, is $15,582.57. For Gary's salary and FICA is $876.24. Expenses paid by the general fund due back to the general fund from the water enterprise account is $280.50. The total accounts payable for the month of June is $16,739.31. And just for one additional note I have this month, I just want to let council know and the citizens know that I am in the process of closing out fiscal year '23, and I'm preparing the records for the auditor.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions, anybody?
I got a question, Kim.
Okay.
It's kind of in the spirit of what you were talking about, closing out the year FY '23. If I'm looking at the balance sheet for the general fund,
Yes.
at the bottom where it says total equity, that's $3,069,000.
Yes.
That's, isn't that kind of the same thing as the auditors put the undesignated funds?
Yes.
So do you know about, can you ballpark about how much more expenses are gonna be applied to FY '23?
Yes, I did write bills out today. Unfortunately, all of our bills are not in quite yet for the month of June, but I did get right much written today. So we probably are looking at probably around 12,000 more for the month of June. And, yeah, that's just in the general fund, yes.
Now, we'll realize some revenue that will be applied to FY '23 with that last, what are they called, franchise fees? check.
Correct.
Do you know approximately how much you expect that to be?
Average is around 76,000, give or take.
So if I took the 76 and projected revenue and subtracted 12 from that, that fund balance would grow approximately 64,000 by year end.
Yes.
See, that's an important number to me. It's kind of, just a moment of reflection here. That would actually be the highest fund balance, I think, that the town would have seen, maybe with the exception of when we received sales tax revenue back in '03 and before that. I have no idea what it was back then, but it's kind of a personal note of satisfaction for me that the fund balance has grown, and that's important.
It has.
'Cause it's hard to get that to grow with as little income as we have.
Hard to grow.
And I'm not talking about any ARPA money in this, right?
No.
Okay, good.
No.
Do we have any ABC money coming in? Still, is everything from the ABC board came in?
I believe all of that has come in. We have, I think, we have one more coming from the county, excuse me. We will have one more coming from the county,
All right, that's good.
yes. It'll be a small one, but
Good
yeah, we will
deal.
have one more.
Pretty good for a town with no taxes.
We are. I'm very proud of this council. Thank you.
Well, you're doing a
Thank you
good
for what
job,
you do.
too. You as well.
Yeah, I mean, you guys are good. You're good with the money, so it's great.
Thank you very much, Ms. Thacker. Is there anything else?
I do not have anything.
Any further
else.
discussion? We're going to open it up to citizens' comments. Our first person up is going to be our representative from the school board, Mr. Bill Goebel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Councilman, for giving me 3 minutes to introduce myself. I want to first off recognize that you have good taste in legal counsel. He's my lawyer, and also finance. She's my CPA. So, good choices.
Incestuous.
Yeah. Well, you can find out anything about me now. I heard there's a bit of controversy about me, and I don't want to get into that, quite frankly. I'd rather talk about what are we going to do for the kids. what is best for the kids. One councilman's already approached me and said, hey, we need a police officer when school's open. Okay, I'll take a look at that and see if I can fix that. If there's other things that you think we need to do for our kids and our parents of kids, that's what I'm here to serve for. I think we need to get past the controversy. It is what it is. You know, I have a saying that a lot of these things that happen, I had no control over. And I don't know if you ever read a book called, from Oswald Chambers, called Utmost for His Highest. It's the second most published book next to the Bible. In fact, George Bush uses it as his daily devotion. And in there's a story about, and it kind of reflects my philosophy. And it talks about Oswald had just come from a missions trip from Boston with his new wife. And they were on a steamer. This is in 1910. And he told his wife, he says, honey, I'm a pastor. We're not going to have any money. We're not going to have a lot of things. But I trust the Lord, and he always delivers. And so they're on their way back. 2 days from arriving in England, she comes up to him, and Oswald was up on the top deck reading a book. And she said, Oswald, I know you told me to trust the Lord, but I got to tell you, I'm anxious. We have no money. We have no place to live. All we got is what's in the steamer trunks downstairs. What are we going to do? And he reminded her about trusting the Lord. And he says, you know, I trust the Lord and do the next thing. And it's in his autobiography. And she says, okay, what's the next thing? And he says, I'm going to roll over and take a nap. And when I first heard that, I was upset. I'm thinking, this woman's looking for some hug, some feeling good. But then I thought about it. He was so confident and trusted in the Lord, he could roll over and go to sleep. And I don't know about you folks, but when you're stressed, sometimes falling asleep is not the easiest thing. So my philosophy is I'm going to trust the Lord and do the next thing. And the next thing is to work with you folks to improve our schools for our kids and our parents. That's all I got to say. Unless you got questions, I'll take them.
Could you give us an update on the, the Northwest schools, speaking of like Oak Ridge, Stokesdale, the Northwest High, junior, middle school, are any of those in a upcoming phase to start construction?
I can tell you that we're looking at land for the school, for one of the schools, and I can't get into a lot of details because when you're going to buy land, you got to be real quiet where you're talking. But we're looking at buying some land, and when we do that, we're going to modify Northwest Middle School and give us more expansion so that we'll have more room out there. So there's a whole plan around that, and I'd like to come back and give you the details once I'm allowed to and talk to you about that. The other thing I can tell you what we are doing, to me, safety for our schools is a big deal. So when you send your kids to school, you want them to come home safe. So we're going to put in over 8,000 cameras in all our schools. In addition to that, and these are state-of-the-art cameras. These are cameras that will have the ability to set boundaries. So if somebody, a young kid opens a door and puts a little block for his buddy to come in, we're going to know that. And it's going to alert not only the principal, but anybody, the security, the police, the sheriffs, and everybody else. The other thing we're going to do for every school, starting with elementary, we're going to put in new vestibules. And those vestibules are set up so that you're looked at by a camera, and you're not allowed into vestibule until you're buzzed in. If you look kind of questionable, you're not getting in. When you do get in, you're locked in there. It's shatterproof. Nothing's bulletproof. It's shatterproof. And once you're locked in there, if you start looking, again, if there's questionable, they call the police and you're locked in. They do this in Europe in banks. And then the next part of the security is, and we want to do layer after layer on these things. The next part is they don't even go into the school. They come back into the office as well. And then we're putting all new body scanners in. Now, the problem with our current body scanners is if they see something that goes off, you have to wand them. Well, you get 800 kids coming through, and a bunch of stuff goes off because they got pens and pencils and stuff. You know how many people it takes to wand and how long? So what we're going to do is, I don't know if you've been to the Tanger Center or some of these sporting events where people actually walk through and it puts a color code, kind of like the TSA thing. We're going to be putting those in our schools so they're state-of-the-art, so they'll be picking up things. There's still some issues with those because the technology isn't there yet to pick up some things, but we're working on fixing that. Yes, sir.
Bill, one of our simplest things we'd like to have is we'd like to have the sheriff's department out here in the first of the year every every first of the year to help control traffic. I mean, it's just a fundamental, very simple kind of thing. And we don't understand why we can't get the sheriff's department to help us with this.
Yeah, that's what Mr. Rigsby, Councilman Rigsby
Yeah,
pointed
I
out,
mean,
so I'll
you
look
know,
into that.
all of these things you're talking about are great, but we're talking about just fundamental things.
Yep. I already visited your school and went through with the principal and visited the kids, and one of the things, I asked her, make a list of things that you need. And she's done that, and I'm working off that. One of them was the air conditioning didn't work a lot. The other thing, she needed mental health counseling. We just received a grant, the largest grant. In fact, we got more money than the state did for this, 14 million. And the state only got 12 for the whole state. And we're finding because of COVID, we have a real big problem with kids interacting with kids. We're getting now bullying on kids, more so than we ever had. And the ability for them to concentrate. And that's now transferred into the teachers because they're having to deal with it. So we're trying to find some way to have mental counseling for not only the kids, but the teachers to help them through this. And it's not, hey, suck it up, buttercup, do it. There's a lot of dynamics that go on with the families that we inherit. You know, it's interesting, our schools, when you look at our schools, you'll have families, right? I have 3 kids. I didn't get a manual. I did not get a manual. I had to go to family members. I come from a large family, 8 kids and 66 first. But family members, church members, scouts, all these people learn how to become a parent. Well, schools have the same problem. No one gives us a manual. Every kid learns different. Every kid learns at their own pace. I learned, I was a slow learner. It wasn't until later on. So what we do is we try and get the bulk of them that we can do, but there's 20% that are superstars. Do we hold them back or do we let them go? So we have a lot of programs to let them go and become superstars. But then we have 20% that are really struggling. Now, what are we doing with them to bring them up? And there might be a couple superstars in there. So we have a lot of problems in the school board trying to get all this done. I mean, I'm not saying that we're trying our best. We have a great administration. I spent a weekend going through our budgets. I had a ton of questions, mainly about acronyms. And I spent a whole day with the CFO, the Chief Operating Officer, and the Chief of Staff. And I said, I need answers to these questions. And the thing that impressed me more than anything else, they had answers for every question that made sense, that they could go in and drill down. Kind of like what you just did with your CPA here. And I was like, okay, they're on top of their game. So we've got some good assets, but boy, do we got a long way to go. Anything else?
Any questions?
Could you expand on the security? You mentioned commonalities between what the TSA uses. So when you're walking into, let's just use Northwest Middle School as an example. Will there be new security features there?
Yep. Well, to give you an example here, you have an entrance, right?
Right.
All we're going to do is build that up so that there's another, you come in, but you're not going to be buzzed in any further until you get checked out. So it's going to be a double entry. I'll see if I can get you, if we can exchange information, I'll see if I can get you some more details on that.
Okay.
I talked to the security officer, spent a lot of time with him because school safety's, my dad was a fireman, my uncle was a cop. And so school safety is a big deal to me. And so I spent some time with him, and I didn't get into the details of what it was going to look like and all that. So I'll get that for you, and
Yeah.
I'm happy. And I'll come back here
But they'll
again.
have metal detectors, or is that kind of what you're thinking?
These are body scanners, but they look for metal, they look for bombs, they look for clubs, they look for knives. Knives are a little tough to get because keys set them off as well. So you got to kind of get in there. And we got to do some different things. But it's going to be a color screen, and as you walk through TSA, it's not one of these.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Look, I'm all about the security. It's needed. It's been talked about by this board ad nauseum. I think the county commissioners allotted $10 million maybe back 4 years ago.
That's correct.
And the school board really did
That-
nothing with
that's
it until
correct.
there was an event. I want to say it's Southern or South, I think Southern Guilford.
Yeah.
But that's beside the point. I'm trying to logistically in my mind, if there are metal detectors or body scanners, if you will, like when I go through an airport, I have to take my baggage and put it through a rolly thing.
Yeah, so that goes through a separate scanner. I don't know the answer to that, but I'll find out.
Okay. Because what I'm thinking, I'm wondering logistically how these kids are gonna go in the door and, are they gonna have to take their book bags off and put them to the side? I just think about a school of 1,500 students, what a bottleneck that could be.
Yeah,
If
I
indeed that's
agree.
the case, and I'm not saying it is, but you mentioned body scanners and TSA, and I immediately thought of the long lines at the airport.
Sure.
So,
Yeah, let me check into that. I don't know if, I don't want to, I'll get you an answer.
okay, thanks, Bill.
One more, I just want a touch point, you brought up a good point. The traffic coming out of Northwest High School in the afternoons, it takes about 15 to 20 minutes to get out of the parking lot. There's only, there's two ways out, but, if they're crossing each other, then they're keeping each other from pulling out. So would it be a reasonable assertion to speak with the sheriff's department to see you have school resource officers on site, why they cannot help get some of the traffic flowing? And my understanding is it's not in part of the contract. It's not part of their contract to direct traffic. To me, that's public safety as well, because it's tough getting out of those. A lot of those kids have to go to work. They're trying to go get something to eat before they have practice or games, and if you have a resource officer on site, just as simple, why he can't stand out on the road and help direct traffic for 15 minutes is beyond common sense to me. And so I know I'm sure other schools have the same concerns and issues. You have a deputy on site already that we're paying for. And if it's just a matter of reworking the contracts or adding that into the contract, but that's public safety as well, is getting them off campus safely. So they're not crossing each other, they're not having to, dart out. Because I know if you come out of Northwest High School, you got two exits, and if this road's coming out, he's going left, and so he's holding this road from coming out because he can't go because traffic, and it's just a nightmare out there.
Okay, I'll take a look at that. Thanks for bringing it to my attention. Anybody else?
Yes, sir. I'd like to know if you support multiple pathways to a good education, such as school vouchers, charter schools, private schools, to offer alternatives to parents that, for whatever reason, want to utilize them, or whether you believe that public schools, government schools are the one size fits all.
Sure. I went to a Catholic school, all-boys Catholic school in Ohio, and some of my brothers went to public school, and then a couple of them went to charter school. So we've done a little bit of everything in our family, and it's all worked. There's a couple things about charter schools and vouchers that I've got a little concern about, and that's accountability. Right now, the way it's set up, for example, we spend $42.5 million on charter schools. Now, we have to, as a school system, do all kinds of reports to our school, to the federal government. I mean, the mandates with the federal government. When we take federal money, holy cow. The amount of reports we have to do for that is phenomenal. We have to hire people to do it. And not so much with the state, but in the county. It doesn't have to require as much. But what I asked about was, what kind of reports do we have on the results of the charter schools? We don't get any. We don't get anything. It's not required. And I'm thinking, how can that be? So that's one issue I have with charter schools. The same thing is with vouchers. They've done vouchers in Ohio and Texas and other places, and we don't have any reporting for vouchers set up that if somebody gets a voucher, they can have 29 kids on vouchers in their school, and they're getting vouchers for 29 kids, and they only have 20 kids in the school. We don't even get a report on that. So when we get into vouchers, we got to start looking at how do we make sure that we're using vouchers the right way to get kids. Vouchers were originally set up to help families that didn't have enough money to get into private schools or charter schools. Well, if you go to the private schools around here, Caldwell Academy and other ones like that, the tuition is through the roof. The voucher, I think their tuition is $14,000 a year. That's phenomenal. I mean, I didn't pay that in college. And And one of my kids, two of my kids went to Caldwell. They were not that high then. They're a couple $1,000. So how much of a voucher do we give somebody who wants to go to Caldwell? Do we give them 14,000?
Do you know how much it's costing a taxpayer for elementary school students, middle school students,
$19,000 a year.
and high school students?
About 19,000 is the average price we're spending on each kid. So,
And one final question. You're the representative for Northwest Guilford County. I'm not sure exactly where the boundaries are, but you represent basically Stokesdale, Oak Ridge, and Summerfield, Colfax. Is that
that's
generally
correct.
correct?
Yeah, no, I don't go down to Colfax, but yeah.
Okay. I'm wondering what kind of system you're using to assess previous allocations to this area, current allocations and future allocations, so that we at least attempt to have you asked to get our share of the funding.
Well, you,
There's a big budget. If I'm not mistaken, the Guilford County Schools utilize about half of the Guilford County budget. Is that about
probably
correct?
more. Our budget is over $1 billion a year.
Okay.
We get about a third from federal, state, and local.
Okay.
Rough.
So there's a lot of money being spent. Our citizens are paying in every year. And it's the pressure is on you to do everything you can do to bring our proportion of that spending back to your district, which is our area.
Amen. I
And
agree.
so have you got any allies? Have you got some plan? A lot of the citizens in Northwest Guilford County feel like we've been shortchanged over a period of time. I'm kind of tend to be one of those myself. I realize you got lots of problems, big budget, large student population. I realize it's not easy, but what are you going to do as our rep to rectify this situation?
Well, first off, I got to find out what kind of situation it is, okay? Because I don't know what, are we putting in 20% and getting 5% back? Well, if that's a problem, if that's the case. So I'm going to make myself a note to go and check that, okay? Because I don't know that off the top of my head. I've just started April 4th, and the first 2 weeks, quite frankly, I was out of commission. So I haven't been there but 6 weeks, and I'm trying to run as fast as I can to get this. But I will find that out. That's a great question.
I've got a follow-up to Tim's question. You mentioned, when you were speaking about charter schools, you said we gave $42 million to charter schools. Who is the we?
School board.
The Guilford County
Yep,
School Board?
that's what the line item was 42, because I asked him, I said, what's this, because it doesn't say charter schools.
Okay.
It said something else, so I asked him, what's a $42 million expense? And he said, that goes to charter schools to support them.
And where does that money come from?
The Guilford County, federal government and state.
Taxpayers.
It comes out of the money that we would put in Stokesdale and other schools, quite frankly.
Don't forget your North Carolina education lottery.
Yeah, I am digging into that because, in case you don't know, I'm doing an article a month in the Northwest Observer. The first one was about graduation, but next one I want to get into is where'd all the lottery money go? And who's using it? What I found out.
Where'd all the money before the lottery go?
Yeah, there was money before it.
We had education before the lottery.
Yep. That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. I
and-
don't know.
They're
The
gonna
lottery,
open up the sports books now, and they're gonna get some money out of that. So
the
let's see where
lottery,
that goes.
the lottery was sold as solving all our problems, and to me, it seems like it has disappeared like a vapor.
Yeah.
As far as the money goes, you don't hear anything about it. There's the same angst over the schools, school budgets, problems from A to Z.
Yeah, I've got to get my hands wrapped around how much is going in, how much is coming out, and then when it comes out, where does it go? I know it goes to the county commissioners before it comes to us. It does not come to the school board.
And additionally, I might add, a lot of times it's a tax on the poor. The people that are buying those tickets can't necessarily afford them. And it's not necessarily teaching.
Oh, it's a crime. It's a crime. That's all it is. But I could preach all day on this. And I was a convenience store operator, and I was the one who benefited the most. But anyway, I tell you what, why don't we see you in September?
I tell you what, you will.
Okay.
Yeah, I plan on coming back. I can always, that way I can check on my CPA and lawyer, make sure they're behaving. Okay, thank you. You gave me a lot of time and I appreciate it.
Bill, thank you,
And,
thank you very much.
I'm gonna
Thank you
leave-
for the balls to come.
Wow, I'm not afraid. I got thick skin.
Okay, we appreciate it very much. All right, our next speaker is Gordon Morrison. This gentleman is someone who I have recommended as our new town handyman, I hope. We'll see what happens later, but just to introduce himself.
Hi, everyone. Gordon Morrison. I'm here with my wife Renee. Well, this is my first city council meeting I've ever been to. And I'll tell you, this just reminds me of back when I was in school as a junior high student. You had social studies and you learned about stuff, but you never really saw stuff, and it's totally lost. And the point of me bringing this all up is what an education this has been. And I applaud you guys for knowing the facts, you coming and putting everybody to task. I'm impressed. I'm impressed. But I'm only here because I'm just a handyman, retired entrepreneur. And my name of my company is Greenway LLC, registered with the state, and I'm insured. And I pretty much do from soup to nuts. I don't do anything real big and get caught up into the big projects. I leave that for all the other people. That's fine with me. I don't mind, getting started in the day and going home with that minimal project, from mounting a TV, ceiling fan, fixing doors, whatever have you. As Mayor Crawford said, as I went and helped him on out, and I tend to do exactly what I'm gonna do, and I do it, and then I get paid reasonably, and I make sure everybody's happy before I go home. So if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer, but I'm just gonna leave a flyer out here. There's always a need for somebody like me. Believe it or not, I advertise in Northwest Observer, and it's surprising how many people need people like me. Any questions?
Can you give us a quick rundown of past experience, qualifications, whatever you would want us to take into consideration?
Well, I've always been mechanically inclined. Still am, I guess, a licensed airplane mechanic. Once you're licensed, but I'm not current at it. And I've always been fixing stuff. I've got multiple references, but, I've always fixed stuff. I just have had that nature. Some people are artists, and I don't know how they do that stuff. But I've always been able to just like, why is that like that? As a matter of fact, my mother even tells us, I've got a good one. My mother told me that I tried to take apart my sister's high chair, asked for a Drew drawer. So.
You started young.
Started young. So anyways, I just have been always able to do it. From, like I said, I looking at I was waiting for everybody to finish it, but I looked at this sheet that I came up when I first started: light fixtures, ceiling fan installation, wall ceiling repair, furniture assembly, lock replacement, mounting items on walls, light electrical, electrical on the other side. I'm not licensed, and I do plumbing, small engine repair, once again, because I'm an airplane mechanic. Just everything on here I've already done, and I've been doing, professionally, where I was started the business 4 months ago, and it's just, I'm busy, pleasantly busy, not overwhelmed. But give me a call.
Gordon's not someone that I would propose we put on salary by any means, but he's our go-to guy. He's the guy that we need to replace all the bulbs in the ceiling for whatever reason. He's the guy that we've got a situation in the park that we need somebody to take care of, whatever that may be. We're talking about a handyman. That's really what he would be for us.
I'm not here to replace anyone.
Now, we're under contract with Duke Power, aren't we, as far as bulbs, right?
Yeah, think that's correct. I think-
Okay, so let's
yeah.
don't get him changing any bulbs. We're
We're
under
under
contract.
contract.
Can you put a mirror up? That's the
Can probably do that.
Actually, that's
I
the
was
first thing
listening
I
to
want
you
him to
talking
do.
about the soap dispenser. I
Can he
think I
put
can
one
help
up
you.
that's older
That's the
wrong?
first thing I want him to do is take care of our mirror, yes, but,
So I put the soap dispenser on the wall. All of them are on the mirror, but since we hadn't hung the mirror yet, and the mirror seems to be disproportionate to the space, so I put the soap dispenser over on the wall. Said it shouldn't be adversely affected when you hang the mirror. So just something to think about. But we got some little things that we need to get a water fountain hung and fixed and working. So we definitely have a need. So we'll definitely take your qualifications in consideration and talk
Well,
about it.
and then this is all for personal too, I'm just here to help. And thank you all for your time, and I'm impressed, y'all. Very good job.
thank you, Gordon.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks for coming
We
out.
appreciate it. Consideration of scope and fee proposals for water line extension.
We're gonna add him to the vendor
Oh.
list.
We have one more.
Can we do that now?
Our current vendor policy does not require a vote for him to be added to
Okay,
the vendor list.
It does not require?
Just put him, you're just gonna put him on.
Am I not correct, Mr. Wagner?
That's correct. That's correct. Yeah, he did fill out a vendor registration form and all the required documents.
Is there any objection to him being added?
No, no.
I don't
Can-
have any objection.
can I
I have an
ask what his-
objection to us
Yes?
not voting on vendors, but that's another.
That's another time.
That's another time.
Can I ask what his hourly fee is? I haven't seen that. Are we gonna discuss that at some other point, or?
Gordon, can you give us some idea of what the hourly fee might be?
Sir, excuse me, you really need to come back to the podium with a microphone. It impacts our recordings here.
I go by the job. I don't necessarily go by the hour. If I did the hourly rate, sometimes it would not be to my benefit. Sometimes it wouldn't be your benefit. If I'm up in an attic, installing an attic fan, I take that into consideration, how hot it is and how hard it is for me to lean back and do all the other stuff, or to, I don't know,
Well,
mount brackets for a set of blinds.
this being government and that we're spending public money, you would be able to provide some sort of simple written quote for any jobs, right?
Yeah, oh yeah, that I would do.
Okay, so
Yeah.
if we called you for a job, you could give us a quote on it and it would give us is it fair to say your hourly rate would not exceed $25 an hour?
Oh, it would certainly exceed that,
It would exceed that.
yeah. Because I'm not gonna do that for, climb up into somebody's, wherever it is for $25.
Minimum wage
Is that
now.
low?
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
Is that low?
Yeah.
Well, I'll do it for
Oh, yeah.
$25.
All right.
Well, don't ask your wife how much she spent with me.
Okay, but you would give us a quote if
I
it was
certainly will.
if it was something that,
Yeah.
because I don't see where we,
And I'm sorry, there's gonna be a fight when you get home.
I don't see there's a need where we would be calling you in an emergency. I just don't, I
No,
don't see that.
no, yeah.
But, if we had a project that we needed you to do, kind of like this mirror thing, it does need to be done, and we're not equipped to do it ourselves.
Absolutely, like, no problem quoting, I have form to hand you and everything else you would need.
That set us, and two council members can approve that.
That's our current system, Mr.
Okay.
Crawford.
Well, actually,
The
we changed that system, didn't we?
I don't think so.
I thought each of us had a spending authority individually.
Well, we have a certain amount.
Wait a minute.
But we have a property committee.
No, don't point at me on it. Because I'm going by advice of the attorney, I'm not going by my advice.
Well, I do realize some,
I mean, Jim has the,
I see your point, Mr. Landorf. I acknowledge that
I don't
has
wanna be writing minutes up every time we talk.
true that. It's just our responsibility to maintain fiscal controls and maybe I'm just stuck with traditionally how we've always handled these things, but have made a big effort to keep our budget under control.
I mean, I guess,
So, but we have had councilmen reach out to and have things done individually without other councilmen's approval, such as minutes being transcribed. So I don't see any unreasonableness to, if I needed to get a project done, that if it's within my spending authority, I could do
no,
that without.
nobody's
Mr.
saying
Rigsby,
anything
if
like
you're
that.
referring to the action that I took, it was within the bounds of the separation of duties policy, sir.
Well, that's what I'm referring to. If I decided, one council member decided to have a mirror hung, if it was within my spending authority, I wouldn't need approval from anybody else.
No, sir, I
correct?
don't
No.
think so. But I just for a reminder for the minutes and those who may not know, we operate using our separation of duties policy, and it has those stipulations written out.
Thank you, Gordon. We appreciate it.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much, sir.
Consideration of scope and fee proposals.
Mayor, so I think we have one more speaker. I think I received 3 cards.
I apologize. Mark, Nadell.
Good evening. My name is
Good
Mark Nadell, 8211 Wendy Gale Drive, Stokesdale. I was at the last meeting, and just recently I had the opportunity to read the minutes of the past meeting regarding Councilman Jones's point of order regarding my attendance at the June meeting. This really has nothing to do with me. It really has to do with procedure. What transpired during that session of the meeting, in my opinion, was an example of representatives of our town not following proper procedures according to Robert's Rules of Order. The current seated council has on numerous occasions failed to adhere to Robert's Rules of Order. I wanted to bring this topic because a clarification is required or really needed. The actual process that is required to bring up a point of order is very specific. And I think Robbie handed out some sheets there. And that pretty much explains the process. Councilman Jones really had no right to call for a point of order based on the way the policies of Robert's Rules are set up. If I remember correctly, the last council, when Mayor Flynn was here, a parliamentarian was appointed to make sure that the council operates under Robert's Rules of Order. Some of you may be aware of that, or remember that. I don't have the specifics as to what meeting that was at, but there was a big discussion about that because I remember volunteering for that position because they have a pretty good idea of how that all operates. But they appointed somebody. I don't know who they appointed at that time. So as I said, Councilman Jones really had no right to call for a point of order because no rule or policy was violated. Because a Robert's Rules of Order tells you that in order to be called forward, in fact, there has to be a specific reason for that. And when that came about, what should have happened was the mayor should have addressed Councilman Jones and said, okay, I take your point of order. Can you please explain what the rule or policy has been violated? And as you all know, there was no violation of a rule or a policy, because I did my due diligence before I came to this meeting, and I checked with our now town clerk, who was his deputy town clerk at the time, to ask him if there were any policy or changes, rules, prohibiting the situation. So the point I'm getting at, without going into this more specific, all the details here, is that I think it's important that the council gets a better understanding of how Robert's Rules of Order that we have all agreed to operate under is followed. Because I've seen examples of this situations during the meetings happen where there's been a little not utilizing proper procedures. What threw me was 5 council members didn't question it. I can understand the mayor. Mayor's kind of new to the position, but we have Councilman Jones has been here a long time, and others, Councilman Landreth, has been a lot of experience with the town council. And what even more threw me was our town attorney didn't pick up on it and say, whoop, time out, excuse me, this policy, because I assume, I can bet us down, I assume he has the knowledge of that. And if we don't have the knowledge of that, I really think it's important that the council spend some time getting a little bit of education on the process. The town is growing, there are more complex issues coming here and there, and I think that if we don't follow that, we can only end up putting ourselves in a position of jeopardy. So it has nothing to do with the dog, has nothing to do with what went on. Ultimately, that whole discussion could have been canned right away. We spent 20, 25 minutes discussing what's right, what's wrong, and what should happen and what shouldn't happen. And I don't know if we get billed by the hour from our attorney, but that 20 minutes, in my opinion, was just done incorrectly. So that's my opinion on it. I would hope that the information I supplied you with on Robert's Rules of Order will help you in future processes that we operate the way we should operate. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
We're going to new business, discussion of picnic shelter maintenance at the town park.
Yes, that's my,
No,
oh, did you skip?
we've got old business first.
Okay.
Consideration of scope and fee proposals for water line extension to add system
Oh.
redundancy.
I'm sorry, how did that happen? Yes, you're right.
So,
Yeah, consideration of scope and fee proposals for water line extensions to add system redundancy.
and I'll introduce Mr. Aaron Babson here in a second, but just kind of a rewind back on this. I believe in the early spring, we submitted requests for qualifications to engineering firms for water line extensions within the town. I believe we got 2 back, and we selected Hazen and Sawyer based off their qualifications and also, experience with the town, but specifically their qualifications. And from there, we had a meeting. Tim and I attended a meeting with Aaron and Robbie probably about a month ago to talk about these 2 different water line extensions to add system redundancy to the system. So Aaron has distributed the documents to Robbie, who in turn has shared them with us. And Aaron's just here to talk about those and hopefully answer some questions. So welcome, Aaron.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Councilman Foy. Again, I'm Aaron Babson with Hazen Sawyer. I'm Associate Vice President here in our Greensboro office, and actually a Stokesdale resident as well. So today, the agenda item does mention that we're going to look at the approval of proposals, plural. I think at the end, there were 3 proposals that were prepared based on the alternatives that we'll discuss today. But we're only looking for the approval of a single proposal. But we'll look at that alternatives analysis. And then allow council to discuss, ask questions, et cetera. Robbie, if you'll go to the next slide, please. All right, so just a quick agenda, just went through a couple alternatives analysis. We'll look at the benefits to the Stokesdale water system for the 2 different alternatives analysis, really going back to a prior study that was presented on January 12th of 2023. We'll also look at the cost evaluations for each project was requested in our meeting about a month ago, just to look at the overall cost impacts from from design, survey, geotech, all the way through construction and construction administration. All right, next slide. Okay, you can go one more. So if you'll remember back in January, we discussed the, oh yeah, perfect, thank you.
Use the front arrow to go up and
Perfect, perfect, thank you. So, because I have a tough time reading the small writing, I've got my little cheat sheet down here. But back in January 12th, we looked at the 2 alternatives, one off Coldwater Creek that started at the end of the 6-inch water line that had been installed to the Coldwater neighborhood. We also looked at a second alternative, which was Happy Hill Road down Warner and then back up Bethel Church, Hall River at that point in time to tying back into the system on those respective roads. God damn. Alternative 1A is looking at the Coldwater, alternative 1A in this sense is looking at the 2,500 foot of existing 6-inch and then 14,900 feet of future 8-inch, which would be the green line, showing the green line there. Alternative, sorry, went the wrong way. Alternative 1 was the analysis of what would the impact to the future fire flows be, and also a quick water quality study. We showed improvements to fire flow analysis all through the town with alternative 1. Similarly, as alternative 2, the Happy Hill and Warner Road option showed some consequential upgrades with alternative 2 as well. The ultimate recommendation of this study, confusingly enough, was to go with alternative 2. However, a big piece of that was to assume that there had been quite a bit of pipe already installed on Happy Hill Road by a developer in the private world to serve a neighborhood. Since then, we've taken a step back to look at this alternative as if that pipe was going to be installed by the town instead, and that development may not happen, or if it were not to happen. And because of the timing of the grant, right, not one has to come before the other. And if you were just going to install a water line that started where that pipe should end, right, there would be an unknown amount of time that that water line wouldn't be of advantage to you. So we took a step back. And I apologize, we got to fire flow analysis here. Between the two, you can see that there's negligible benefit of one over the other. The reason that we recommended alternative 2 in January was because of the future potential of the pipeline on Hall River Road and what that might, and the improvements that it had on Highway 68, right, for the town. So moving forward to the additional analysis that was requested as part of this project, such that council could then move forward with a decision on which pipe to design with the grant funds. We took a step back and looked at what were the impacts to the system should the pipe on Highway 158 ever be lost in either scenario. So this is a true redundancy project, and so it should be evaluated as such. What this slide is showing you is the current conditions when under a max day condition. So you need a max, what this is showing, and I apologize, it's a bit smaller than I had hoped, but on the top left side, you see a max day demand of 107 gallons per minute. That is the amount of water that needs to be flowing into the system such that the tank would fill on a max day. Currently, you're able to pull that from the Winston-Salem system at 187 gallons per minute with your existing system. So 187 greater than 107, we're good. Alternative 1, looking at the 6-inch, leaving the 6-inch on Coldwater Road that was previously installed. You're able to let me skip to this because I'm having a tough time seeing it up there. With the 6-inch installed and Highway 158 as well, you're able to pull in 286 gallons per minute. Still greater than the 107, but gives you future expansion abilities as well for future demands.
That's leaving the 6-inch.
That is leaving the 12-inch that's coming from Winston-Salem. So that is what is being provided to the Stokesdale system.
Okay.
Okay, so you're able to pull 286 gallons per minute with both pipes in place. What's important about this is the right half of this slide that shows that if 158 were to fail, right, you had a break in 158, which is the reason for this project from a true redundancy standpoint for the system, that you're still able to pull water with a 6-inch alternative into the system greater than the amount needed under the max day condition. So I'll pause before I go to the other slides and allow any questions, because it'll be a lot of redundant information.
And are we certain there's a 6-inch there on Coldwater Road up to the new subdivision, and that's not an 8?
My understanding is that it was a 6-inch that was installed that is feeding that neighborhood per the as-built drawings.
The town specifications at the time were for 8-inch though, is that not true?
I can't answer that for certain, Mr. Jones. I'm not sure when this pipe was installed.
I believe that they were, Mr. Babson, but my question here is, just for clarification, 14,900 feet of 8-inch water main, $160 a linear foot. Well, actually, 2 points. Does that include any necessary easements, the expense thereof?
So I think are you jumping forward
So-
a bit here?
Well,
Tim,
I guess I'm going right into the money here.
Okay, yeah, which is fine. We can
Want to wait,
absolutely do
well,
that.
I can wait on my question, my
Tim, I've
answer
got
if we
an
need to.
important just note to make, since you're talking about money. The 160 linear foot document, that is obsolete and was replaced today with a document that showed $200 per linear foot.
Okay, I may have grabbed the wrong stack. Yeah, I think that's actually my bad. I got some clarification from Mr. Wagner. Let me fix that.
And if I may, I'll give some context to that. I was provided some numbers from a contractor recently after submitting the $160 per foot that led me to up that estimate to $200 per foot, such that we could be transparent with council, so that cost be much higher in a year. Okay. Alternative 1B is very similar. Replacing the 6-inch that's currently there with an 8-inch. Of course, if you can get it through a 6, you can definitely get more through an 8. Again, there's almost 300 gallons per minute that can come through the Winston-Salem system in a current max day. And with 158 out of service, you can still get more, and that's the more of this story, than you need under current conditions. The same to be true for Happy Hill, right, which was to be expected because it's an 8 and a 12, although much more pipe. And then this is just a summary slide really for your notes and reference as we talk through this. But the most important piece of this slide is that all of them are higher than the 107 gallons that's required to maintain the system pressure and flow during the period of a max day. So I provide all that information as background to say that all alternatives are viable. Especially with the 6-inch, and I think that would be our recommendation to move forward, considering the available funds that are there and the potential cost for this project in the end.
I'm not sure why there's a question about whether this initial cold water line is 6 inches versus 8 inches. Should there not be some documentation? I'm sorry, did I miss something?
He said the as-built shows 6-inch, which
My understanding is
could
the
be
beam is
correct,
6 inch.
but
All right, I'll take it.
where I'm confused is the specs called for 8 at that time period,
Right.
to the best of my knowledge.
I don't
And Mr.
think they
Judge, I
did.
apologize, we weren't involved at that point in time, so I'm not sure what was that, why that was approved at 6 inches.
It would have been spring of '21 that was installed.
So I'll revise my statement to say we weren't asked to review those documents in the spring
Sure,
of
sure,
21.
no, that's not what I was getting at, but, no, I just had a conversation with a gentleman today that made me question, is that truly 6 or 8? And this guy would know.
So honestly, best case scenario, it's an 8.
Right,
and,
right.
And the
I
documents
don't
were-
wanna get-
And that would be excellent.
I don't want to get caught off on
yeah,
a tangent
yeah.
here. So,
Yeah, without going out and digging it up, it would be hard
Sure.
to
sure.
confirm at this time. And we would want
Nice
to do that
surprise.
during design. It would be, yeah. Much better than thinking it's 8 and go and finding out it's 6, right? So what this table is showing you, or is attempting to illustrate, is the total cost of the project to the town at the end. And so slide 16 showing you that or estimating that alternative 1A, leaving the 6-inch pipe in place, going up Coldwater Road, would total at $200 per linear foot for 8-inch, would total to $3.6 million. An estimate for alternative 1B, which would be replacing the existing 6 with an 8 to update to current specifications, would cost an approximate $4.3 million. And then the I apologize, the Happy Hill Road option for alternative 2 would be the most expensive of those at 5.8. So due to the available funding that I mentioned earlier, I think Hazen and Sawyer's recommendation at this time, although not our decision, this would be up to a town council vote, would be to leave the 6 inches due to negligible impacts to the flow and pressure in the system, and install the 8 from the end at Coldwater neighborhood, up Coldwater Road, up to Highway 65, and then back into town.
That's your recommendation?
Yes, sir. If you were going to do a project, that's our recommendation.
Aaron,
Yes, sir.
of that $3.6-ish million, we know that the construction is the biggest chunk of that.
Absolutely.
And of course, that was put in at a fairly conservative estimate of 200 linear feet, $200 per linear foot. Are Hazen and Sawyer's prices, which include preliminary engineering, survey, geotech, detailed design, permitting, easement, acquisition, bid phases, project management, workshops and meetings, and fund collaboration, that totals $366,000. Is that set?
Yes, sir.
Preset? What could change that?
So this is a categorical rate not to exceed. So we would charge at a cost per hour, per job title, our roles. And the only thing that would change that at this point in time would be if additional surveying would be needed, if additional geotech would be needed. The things that could impact both of those. Survey could potentially mean that we got into a land acquisition issue. Currently, to answer your question, Mr. Jones, from earlier, for easements, I don't anticipate the need for easements in this road. It is different than others that we've dealt with in Stokesdale and around. It actually has a right-of-way from the NCDOT that appears to be fee simple based on the deeds that I have looked at thus far. And I have not looked at all of them. We would rely on our surveyor to let us know that. But at this time, we are not including costs for additional easement plats from the surveyor. There is some cost from Hazen and Sawyer that would, it includes us doing some minimal research. We aren't title attorneys, and we aren't surveyors, registered surveyors, but we would do our level of research that we're able to understand whether, where those properties go to, whether they go to the center of the road or whether they're fee simple right away. Such that they be fee simple, then it's an NCDOT encroachment agreement, and we just need to get approval from the local division.
Okay.
So that would be a potential cost change. So what the fee that is not included in our proposals today is for construction administration services. We would suggest we wait to the time where we understand the full scope of the project after design. We look at the contractor that's on board, and then we mutually agree to what level of inspection services would be needed at that time. Okay. And then we would prepare a proposal based on that. We also could have a sub involved, similar to the way we've done some of the plan review services and inspection fees as well, that could potentially reduce those costs.
Kim, how much money do we have for this right now, set aside?
As far as,
Sorry to put you on the spot.
I'm looking for my spreadsheet. I had, yes. Oh, I got
What is it? What is it, Derek?
4.3.
4.3-ish?
Yes, yes.
Okay, all right.
Get my hand on my spreadsheet.
Are we prepared to vote on this tonight, or?
I've got some questions.
Okay.
Can you walk me through the timeline for this? So once you were, council, it looks like council needs to make a decision and then appropriate the funds for the engineering cost, I guess. But just say that that's already happened. So from here, from that point forward, could you walk me through the timeline between, surveying, design, what would be done simultaneously?
Sure.
Really just through start of construction.
So total, we would anticipate it to be about a year from the time we received notice to proceed from the town to the time we were ready to bid the project.
Okay.
Then the bidding process would be about 3 months. Advertisement of 4 to 5 weeks, review of the bids, approval by council, waiting on the next council meeting. Of course, you could set up, I guess, a special meeting for that as well. And then legal review, right, of those contracts with the contractor. So as far as inside of that, right, we would start, we've already completed the alternatives analysis piece to put the scope of fee together so that we only had to do one. We would write that up. The report would really be the only thing that's missing in that currently, which would be a one-pager. The preliminary engineering pieces would be a route analysis from our team. We'd go out, we'd walk it, we'd document any issues that we see. We'd do the desktop study of, are there any creeks that we didn't know about? Are there any gas lines? Are there any fiber optic cables, things like that? Things that we would expect the surveyor to pick up, but we want to see with our eyes. Understand the project, familiarize ourselves as much as we can prior to getting that additional information. We would then ask, Stewart and SNME to go out on site, which would take, depending on their workloads, potentially a few months to 4 months before we get final products back from those, from our subs. And then we would start detailed design in earnest, which would be preparation of the documents, specifications, using the town specifications, of course, that are standard that we've approved in the last couple of years, but supplementing with individual specifications that we thought the project would need due to any kind of unique measures.
Now, are you at 12 months from what you just said? You're at the 12-month mark?
So 12 months full design before we advertise, and then I would suggest about a 3-month bidding period that would include advertisement to approval and notice to proceed to the contractor.
So 15
15
months
months.
between cancel decision and construction vendor selection.
Right.
And then after that would just depend on raw materials, back order, lead times.
Raw materials are the X factor these days. Yeah, that is what is delaying projects that we're working on currently.
Would you feel comfortable guesstimating that once the first hole was dug for 3 miles of extension, about how long would that take the construction process?
Depending on how much rock we find, I think that we've got a lot of great contractors in the area that could probably get that done in 12 to 18 months. The issue is the pipe procurement. So ductile iron and PVC are anywhere from, the latest I've heard, 36 to 52 weeks, depending on size.
Are contractors stocking any of this
Some,
themselves?
which also led to some of the backlog issues, but yes, they were.
So
But those were mostly your national contractors that you wouldn't see on these projects.
So we're looking at anywhere between 27 and 33 months between cancel selection to project
3-year
completion.
project.
From start of design to end of construction, yeah, that would be about right. And I could pull that schedule in a little bit more detail. I'm basing this on experience. I would need to look a little bit harder at this project, but I feel confident about the design number I gave you.
Okay, cool.
The construction piece could vary depending on what we find in the ground and current state of goods.
We talked about the monies available. We'll use 4.3 million, and that matches the state grant as well as the county grant. County grant uses federal funds to. And you're coming in at 3.6, estimated 3.6. There's still another important project that I think is, for the overall system, is equally important to this, if not more important, and that's something we discussed, I guess it was last fall when we had the water workshops, and that was the, Tim, don't let me butcher this, but the control altitude valve
We discussed electronically connecting our altitude valve with our PRV valve so that the PRV valve would communicate with the elevated tank and cycle. And we also discussed an aeration system for our tank, for our TTHMs.
So, thanks, Tim. So the control valve is something that was in the 2019 Hazen and Sawyer CIP plan.
Yes, sir.
I can't remember if an aerating system was in there or not, but I do know the control valve was. So, I mean, those are important components too. So you've got a finite set of money and, you know, things that we would like to do. But again, finite set of money. Now, back in June, I think it was last meeting, we approved Hazen and Sawyer again to do general engineering services. That's different. That was a different RFQ
That is-
process and
yes, sir.
different than, because it uses federal money. A lot of red tape there. So that was different. And the control altitude, you know, that valve, you know, I'd like to see us have discussion over the next month to have a better idea of what we're looking at there.
Absolutely, we can do that.
I mean, what you've done is great. It's exactly what we asked, an apples to apples comparison for all three options. I think Robbie's saying that there's an 8-inch pipe underground at Coldwater. Is that right?
I think that's correct. I pulled the as-built on that, and I'm no engineer by any means, but I do think it was 8-inch. And then I called Mr. Robertson with Yates Construction to confirm, and he said he was almost certain that was the case.
That would be excellent. Yeah, I don't, maybe
Todd,
add
do you
some
know?
design drawings that was a previous phase, but yeah.
But yes.
I know he wants 8-inch. I know his vote.
But it's reassuring that you have a document, and then Gene is the person I was alluding to earlier.
Correct.
Uh,
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, I was in there looking.
As well.
Yeah.
Yeah, the map is laying in there. It's out right now. I was looking at it just a little bit ago too, and from what I could tell, coming off of the highway on into the subdivision, as a part of those phase 1 as-built, it says 8-inch water main. So I'm almost certain that's the case.
Fantastic.
That's excellent. That's excellent.
Then we have this other chunk of money, the $400,000 from the Division of Water Infrastructure from the state.
Yes, sir.
Of course, that's federal money too. But could that be used for the control, some of that?
So it can be used for the planning piece, and that was one of the, that was one of our recommendations when we applied for that grant for you guys to the state, was to use some of the planning grant funding, which I believe was $100,000, toward the design of the control valve. It cannot be used toward the construction of the control valve. The rest was identified for the AIA, which could cover things like geolocating valves. I think we mentioned a rate study, looking at system development fees. I think were all things that council has mentioned over time that you would like to look into.
Well, your numbers, in my head, I was 3.5 million. So your numbers are right there. You know, I understand why the variables changed in alternative 2, which I think had some good upside to it. But at the end of the day, just like anybody, any business, any family, we got to work within our budget. I do think a missing piece is seeing a study like this for these other smaller projects, so we can have a more holistic view.
Yes, sir.
of this. But this is great. I don't have a motion to make tonight. I'd like to hear what the other guys have to say, but I just want to thank you for putting this together.
Absolutely.
If we don't go ahead and act, I mean, we've been talking about this for, what, 3 years? Maybe not this same project, but we've been talking about it a long time, and price keeps going up. If we keep putting it off, we're not gonna get to the end of Coldwater Road.
That's it.
So, you know, it's one of those things we need to do something or get off the chair. I mean, the months keep going by. I mean, you know, I have some reservations because I think, you know, we could have some new council members come in, but, you know, they're gonna be, you're talking about 33 months, you know,
They're gonna be
you're gonna have two more that's gonna be up, so I mean, it's just one of those things, we got a long-range plan, we're
they're
Yeah,
gonna
gotta
have to
set
be
it, set it in
reinventing the
motion.
wheel.
We've got to set it in motion, and then, you know, hopefully whoever comes in will, you know, keep it in motion.
Right.
I mean, I guess, you know, we can't, I would normally look at that, but I can't look at that, you know, with this. I just see, all I see is the price keeps going up. And, our money's not gonna keep going up.
well, that's a good point.
Council, I would like for you to just, one consideration, this money has to be spent by 2026.
Right,
Yes,
exactly, December
So,
31st of
that's
'26.
correct.
Encumbered. Has to be.
No,
It's,
If it's spent by
It's-
then, it's
it's
encumbered by
actually-
24.
Oh, really?
Spent.
Mm.
Although I think there's,
You think it's gonna be extended?
no, I think, I'm not gonna say it.
So what are we waiting on? I mean, I don't, you know, what's our next step?
Well, I mean, I'd like to do this project, and, you know, I guess tonight, if we're ready to vote, then I would vote for it. I would just like to see what I consider missing pieces of the puzzle. And again, this is nothing against Hazen and Sawyer, this is just part of the process. And again, the control valve was something that was recommended, you know, 4 years ago, before any of this ARPA money existed. So,
Do we not still have enough money to cover the control valve?
I don't know. I don't know. I would think so, to answer your question. I mean, that's $700,000. I mean,
if I may.
sure.
So I think that the most expensive piece of the control valve upgrade would be the telemetry to send the tank level back to the control valve to tell it whether to open or close. Essentially, that's what's going to happen. Due to there's not enough varying pressures to be able to do that passively. We've looked at that a couple of times now because I didn't believe it the first time I told them, I asked our modelers to take a look at it.
What does that mean? I heard what you said, but I don't know what it means.
So if the pressures are, if they differentiate enough, right? If there's I'll throw 10 PSI out there. That may not actually be enough. But
Okay.
if they differentiate enough, you can control the valve, what I call passively, but you could, based on pressure. And there are pilots that would be placed on the control valve that would open when it sees a certain pressure on the low side and would close when it saw it on the high side, which would be a variation of the tank. Due to the distance that the control valve or the current PRV and interconnection sits from the point where it ties into Winston-Salem system and the tank, there are enough friction losses that make that differential difficult to discern and actually put control on. Is what the model indicates, and that's all we have to go on today. So that the only other way to control it would be to control it on tank level, which is normal, by the way. A lot of places do this. Would be to control it on tank level. So when it drops to I think our recommendation was 19 feet, but don't quote me on that because I don't have the study in front of me. When it gets to 19-foot depth, the valve would open. And when it gets to 38 feet, which is near full, the valve will close. That's in the simplest terms, that is the intent of the control valve. What that does is when it actively closes, it allows the water from the tank to make its way back into the distribution system to feed the homes, right, to feed the users. If you don't do that, the way the pressures work from Winston-Salem as you've tied in, even with the PRV, because it keeps that pressure constant, that's what it's supposed to do. It rarely will ever allow the tank, unless your demand is at a high enough, when you're getting closer to your peaks, it will rarely let the water back out of the tank, and it'll just feed through the pipe and go to the homes. So you've got the potential for some water to get stale. So when water age starts to increase, you start to increase disinfection byproducts and run risks of THM development and things like that. So the idea is that we keep the water turning over in the system, right? Keep it young, keep it fresh, and allow, and the way you can do that is to close it, allow it to empty, open it, allow it to fill. So,
Is that
in the
something we
simplest
would be
terms.
able to do manually?
Yeah, in theory, you could. I'm not sure, with the exception of a failure of the system, which we would hope wouldn't happen.
Okay, so the system should take care of itself.
It would. The telemetry would allow that signal to be sent to the valve to open.
Okay.
So if it got down to where we could only do one of these projects, council, what would you want to do?
What Aaron's talking about, I just don't know how much it would cost. Is it 200? Is it $1 million? I have no idea. Aaron?
Speaking out of turn, because I have not done that analysis, and in a bit, that's what that $100,000 is for, right? For the planning grant is to do exactly what we're talking about and put a price on it. Speaking out of turn, I think you could do it for the amount of money you have left. I don't think it would be $1 million. Should it be $1 million? But I would like to turn the crank and do the analysis and make sure that were a true statement. I don't want to hang myself tonight and say.
I guess we'll see you
we do
next
both.
month.
So
Well, I mean, that's part of that, that's part of that project.
So what if it was $1 million? What would we want to do? Let's just say it was going to be $1 million.
I would say,
would you do
if we've
pro
got to
bono?
go into the general fund, we need to go into the general fund to get this done.
Well, we won't get my vote on that,
I know that.
you know.
Mine needed, but we do have a $200,000 in the capital improvement.
If we can keep it in grant money, I'm all for it.
No, I'm not, what I'm saying is.
Like you just
we
said,
got-
you'd go
you
with
got-
the general.
You've got two
I
projects.
would if we had to.
You've got two projects. Would you want to do one of them and not do the others? I mean, you know, you still have the money to spend. That's all, I'm just throwing it on the wall, guys. Like I said, I keep seeing the price of the pipe go up.
Why are we reviewing this one first as opposed to the others? And that's the question I've been sitting here asking myself, and I think it goes back to the two grants we applied for. That took some time, and we were able to get those for engineering, and now we got them, but we're a little behind in that we don't have proposals in front, or at least some cost estimates in front of us for the telemetry monitoring and the aerator. So
I think
we don't
that
have
was
enough
just in the-
information to make a decision, really. Back to council discussion, I'm very unlikely to vote to take any substantial amount of money out of the Water Enterprise Fund or certainly not the general fund for this. You know, this grant money is great. I'm appreciative that the town got it. But if it puts the town in the red to follow through and actually utilize it, I'm not sure how wise that is. It's a catch-22.
It is. And if I could speak to your first question about the order that these came in, I think this is just the order that the RFQs were sent out.
I know, but we would have sent out the RFQ for those other two projects had it not been for waiting to get that engineering grant, which I think was a good thing. But that's essentially why we don't have the three projects in front of us now, in my opinion. I was here during this process, and that's what I see.
So if I may speak, so what's in front of you today is only the design services for surveying,
Yeah,
geotech, and design, not approving the full, I mean, I know you know this, but just a reminder, not approving the full 3.6. Now, that is what it is. My intent, Hazen's intent, is to go back and pull together the scope and fees for the AIE grant and the planning grant that was approved last month. We'll work with you over the next month to work on those scopes. We'll get them to the state for approval. That's a requirement. They will come back with grant packages as they approve them. It'll have 4 or 5 things in there that you've got to approve. One is that you want to do the grant. You're essentially saying that you approve the engineer and that they were selected under competitive means. You would appoint a spokesman from council to the state, so they know who to contact. I mean, it could be Mr. Wagner, it could be someone from council. And there are a couple other items there that I'm forgetting, so I apologize for that. But it is, all of that would be issued back from the state, and then we'd start the engineering piece of the AIA and the planning grant that would design the control valve.
And I might add, before I forget to say it, Mr. Babson, you have put this in very clear, concise language that we can read as laymen. Appreciate, you know, the absence of a lot of engineering terms that we wouldn't be able to decipher, so really appreciate that. It's clear cut.
Very well.
You know, we can
Thank you for
understand
the
it.
opportunity to provide them.
What do you think, Jim?
I think, the agitator and the control valve, you know, we talked about that early on, and it seems to be a long-term need as far as, you know, maintaining water quality and age and stuff. I mean, I think we need to try to, you know, get a number for all three, and let's just move forward. We keep, you know, pushing this thing down the road. You know, we just need to, because the more we do it, the higher costs gonna go on everything.
Are we gonna not do one of these projects? I mean, regardless, I mean, we've got the other 2 projects, but you've got 2 projects on the table here. Are we not gonna do one of those projects because of these other 2 projects? Is that a possibility?
I would have to be convinced that an agitator is truly needed if we install the altitude valve.
Because that was one of the things we were, you know, we had the money we were gonna spend and do both projects, and we didn't think we had to, isn't that correct?
Right.
You know, I mean, if we're gonna do one of these water line projects, I mean, if that's gonna stop us, you know, putting one of those systems in, then so be it, if that be the, you know, council's decision. But if not, I'm gonna say it again, pipe just keeps getting higher.
It certainly does. We don't have any long list of people clamoring to connect to this water main that I'm aware of. I'm not really, don't think we're getting a lot of interest. You know, certainly we'll get some.
I mean, that's not why we're even doing it.
Well, I understand that, but on the other hand, where it's like building a bridge somewhere that somebody's not necessarily going to get the full use out of at the moment. I'm sure in the future, you know, that eventually the people will hook on and it'll be okay. I just don't know how far out there the citizens will get the full use of the money that is being spent.
Well, if the purpose and the intent of the project is to add redundancy in the system, you know, hopefully all citizens would see that soon on. And yeah, it's used in the future, but, you know, part of what we're tasked to do is plan for the future.
Well, that's what we're doing, and plus we're going through a part of town that, you know, a big part of town. I mean, that's gonna cover, and then if, you know, developers wanna hook on to it, they won't, you know.
Sure.
Under our ordinance, you know, we should get some hook-ons, as some of that land's developed. Not that I wanna see any of it developed, but we know that that's what's gonna happen.
Sure.
So, I mean, you know, I'm just saying, if we're gonna do it, well, you know, I think I've made my point, I hope. And if something's not stopping us there and we're gonna do one, we need to do something, because every month, I mean, you don't never know, we might need to get another round of 15–20% inflation.
Biden could get reelected.
I would say that as we get through the design of both systems, if you approve them, we should look at potentially adding, you know, both of these, or all 3 of them as it may, into a single project and see if there's any kind of economy of scale in bidding and things like that. But you're not, once you bid a project, you are not, guaranteed or you're not promising anyone that you have to do it, right? If you've got a number that's outside of your budget range, you can always walk away. You could split the projects, you could do different things.
Well, we pay you a lot of money, what would you do? If you had the vote if you had the vote to make the decision tonight, what would you do?
From an engineering standpoint, I think there is a lot of benefit in the redundancy of alternative one. Having said that, I mean, the control valve is a project that I think would have a lot, both. I'm not sure that there's one or the other. Would have a lot of benefits in the future.
If you had to do one or the other?
I think I'd want to see the numbers for both. However, that's a biased response, right? Because we have to design it to get those numbers. And so I feel a little bit uneasy giving you that recommendation because there's some benefit, right? And from an engineering standpoint, there is a lot of benefit in alternative one. There's a lot of benefit in alternative two as well, but alternative one fits in your budget. I think that we have a conservative number.
And I'm not talking about the two different ways.
Understood.
I'm saying if we went cold water and we did the other things to the water tank, and that's what I'm talking about. If you're gonna do one of those projects, what would you do?
Yes, sir. So what I was gonna say is I think that we have a conservative number. I think in my experience that it's relatively easy construction, and I honestly think you're gonna be able to do both. If you're asking me which one I would do over the other, because you have the funds available now, I do alternative one. The control valve is not going to take up that whole pot. And my understanding of the most recent budget is that there's a lot of clawback provisions in there, and if not used, it could potentially be taken away. And so,
Mr. Babson, over time here, we've had a lot of conversations about all the details here, but what I think I've heard from you is that the electronic controls for the PRV valve, so they communicate with our elevated tank, would have a tendency to take care of our water aging so that we don't necessarily need aeration in a tank. Are you aware of any new standards coming down from higher government that might change that in the future? Are any rules being discussed, or are rule changes being discussed that might force us to have to do that at a later date if we defer it now?
I'm not aware of any, but there's a lot of things that are talked about, right? So,
well,
but I am not aware of any.
What's on my mind for everybody concerned here, since our system was designed, as I understand it, that the TTHM requirements were put in place after our system was designed. That's what I remember. And so I'm kind of wondering what's going to happen next, what may be coming down the pike.
So I believe those are being managed. We would need to talk with the system operator, but I don't think you're currently experiencing any issues with those. There's the model indicates that there could be some water quality concerns, water age concerns. I shouldn't say water quality. I will say water age concerns that could indicate water quality in the future. To my knowledge, you're not seeing any of those issues right now. I think that's very important to say. You were just required to submit the local water supply plans and reporting. I don't think there was anything involved in that either. Maybe Mr. Wagner can help us. But,
Okay, with that said, I'm going to make a motion, Mr. Mayor, if I may, and that would be that the town of Stokesdale accepts the scope and fee proposal for alternative 1A dated July the 10th, 2023, and that we authorize Hazen and Sawyer to proceed with a design for this project.
I'll second that. You done?
Could you specify the amount?
That's a good idea.
it is.
And then The
I'll
date,
second it,
the
whatever it
date of
is.
the document.
Somebody get me on the right page, or
Does,
I'm lost.
does this include the tower, the water tank?
Tim, it's page 10.
This is two different projects. This is the water lines.
Page 10, I'm here. Thank you, sir. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Foy. I'll modify my motion to add that the total contract value is $366,400.
That's correct.
I second.
Okay. That's my motion, Mr. Mayor.
And then, could we use
Discussion.
the same verbiage that Hazen and Sawyer's using, not to exceed 366,400?
I accept that, not to exceed
I'll second that.
366,400, good point.
Discussion? Mr. Rigsby?
Aye.
Foy?
Aye.
Mr. Landrith?
Aye.
Mr. Jones?
Aye.
And I am also aye. Where do we stand with the tank?
The what?
The tank and the, was that part of this?
No.
No.
We can, I mean, we need to be doing whatever research it is that, we need a vote for that to get that started. We need to get that started
No,
and see where we're gonna be.
Mr. Babson and I spoke earlier today, and we covered that very subject. And that's a service that Hazen and Sawyer will provide to us, like, sort of like a free estimate. They're going to
Okay.
write that up for us.
Will we have that in?
He didn't say when, though.
My intent is to be standing here next month.
Okay, that'd be great. That'd be great.
Mayor,
Congratulations, guys.
if I
We got
may.
something started.
Yes?
the $366,400, where is that coming from? Which grant are we pulling that one from?
Guilford County.
Okay.
And we'll just, is it okay to just specify that that money is received in reimbursement amounts? It's not like that 3.1 was sent to us, so is it okay to spend that and then, I
The-
guess,
The contract with the county includes they would do an initial $600,000 cash outlay to us to cover any potential cash flow issues with our money being tied up in CDARS. So
okay.
it should be good.
Yeah, just for clarification, it's certainly my intent that that money will be grant money
Okay.
that
Oh,
we are
absolutely.
receiving.
I just want to make sure. So the Guilford
Good.
County, the 3.1, okay. Gotcha.
Good question, thank you.
So what we may need to do then, maybe at the next, we'll need to consider if we need to do a project ordinance, since we're using grant money for even this phase of it. So what we may need to do is just have a project ordinance prepared for the next meeting to authorize and identify where the fund's coming from exactly, to put that on record.
Okay, thank you.
You can take care of that?
Yeah, we'll have that ready. And if you want to have a special meeting for that, or we can do it at the next meeting.
Is there any reason for us to have to do it? Is there any reason that the time would?
I don't think we have to do it now. We can go ahead and proceed with it, but I think at some point, should adopt a project ordinance.
Will we have to?
Right.
I think if we just mirrored what we did for the
Yeah.
basketball and pickleball.
Last one, same thing. Yeah.
Just the important part, though, is to show the source
Yeah.
of the money.
Just do it next meeting.
Well, let's leave ourselves some flexibility. If it looks like we're going to somehow hold up Hazen and Sawyer and Mr. Babson, we may need to call a special meeting and attend to that.
Is that gonna hold
I
you
don't-
up? That's not gonna hold you up, because you're
I
not
don't
gonna
think
bill
so.
us.
I don't think so. We'll spend the next month getting our agreements settled with our subs. They'll need time to get out there, right? They won't be able to go out there tomorrow, so they'll need to get that into their workload. So they really won't incur any costs until you get that project ordinance approved. So it'll be at least a month. What I would ask of council and staff, if you have any instructions for the grant requirements for reimbursement, any forms that need to be filled out, or anything that would, we could assist with, that you would provide those to us.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you, Aaron.
Thank
you,
you,
everyone.
Appreciate you, Aaron.
Thank you, sir.
All right, now we move on to new business. Discussion of picnic shelter maintenance at the town park.
That is, again, my item. In being down there and looking at the two shelters, I guess you call it stain or whatever you want to, finish on the shelters appear to be weathered and worn. And my suggestion would be that we consider maybe having those refinished or refurbed while we have the money in the grant. And so I would like to make a recommendation or that town staff reach out to and get 3 estimates to possibly have those restained, and also maybe look at the roofs on them and see if they need to be re-roofed as well. Just because they should be, if I'm not mistaken, they're at least 10 years old, 12 years old. And while we have the money available, that we at least get some maintenance. That's 2 of our bigger items out there right now, and just have some maintenance done on them.
Any discussion, any objection?
I don't have any objection against looking at any proposals anybody brings forward. I haven't observed any need for new roofs on those, but I'd like to go back and look at them before I render an opinion here. Mr. Rigsby, I'm not so sure underneath that the oldest picnic shelter ever had any finish applied to it. I've stood there and wondered that myself. I know the stains that you're referring to.
Well, it just
needs
appears to be,
some stain.
yeah, they just either faded, inconsistent. And as far as the roof goes, I haven't looked at the roof. I'm not a roofing expert, but just while we're looking at it,
Have somebody look at it.
If we have some money available, that would be something. That's a large outlay cost that, if the roofs are 10 to 12 years old, while we have the money available, we should just at least have somebody look at the roofs and see if there's any damage to them or anything. But yeah, my primary concern is just the aesthetic look of the shelters themselves, and if there's any any repairs that need to be done to them, like any wood boring holes, just stuff like that, just some general upkeep to them.
Well, for the record, Mr. Rigsby, one of those shelters is considerably older than the other one. And so we're talking roofing versus painting. I'd like to be sure that we're looking at basically 4 different proposals when this gets back in front of us. Just, that's what I want to see. So we're not mixing apples with oranges.
So would you prefer that we have 4, so 4 items, shelter 1, for instance, would be a roof and a stain, and then shelter 2 would be a roof and a stain. So if we could just, we can keep them all 4 separate and just get an estimate or at least a proposal for all 4 individually.
I don't think the stainer's gonna be the roofer. I think you need,
We need to probably call.
That's
to
what
the
I'm
roof.
saying.
Yeah.
Okay, we decide we're gonna hire a painter. That
Yeah.
has nothing to do with the roofer. That's
Exactly.
completely disconnected. So I don't think we try to, otherwise, we're looking for a general contractor, I guess, to manage both projects at the same time.
No,
If that's what council wants to do.
No, I don't, we could just get, I don't know, if somebody, we can look at ourselves, look at the roofs and just see what the kind of condition they're in.
I'd like to look, I have some experience in those matters. I'll take a look at it, get a pair of binoculars and look over them.
But
I'll provide you a step ladder.
for the purpose of this proposal, then we can limit it to just have some, 3 vendors come out, look at, upgrading the stain or whatever finish that needs to be done to it.
No, yeah, that's no problem at all.
Our choices would be a semi-solid stain, a solid stain and paint. I don't really think it's a good idea to paint them.
Do we know if they're stained now? Was anybody here when it was built?
That's what I said. I'm not sure that first picnic shelter was ever treated. I remember when it was built.
We'll get the painter to make that recommendation.
So are you saying the wood that's naturally brown or like treated brown or?
I'm saying that's why it looks like it's aged, so it never had a surface treatment on it. I don't think.
Some of those packages are like telephone poles. They come pre-done.
Right.
That's what it was. It was a
Yeah.
kit.
They don't do them once they're set up. It's pre-factory done. But yeah, let's get it looked at so we don't rotting out.
All right.
Yeah, that's no problem. I can do that. I actually reached out to one of the neighboring towns and asked them for a couple recommendations on folks to reach out to, so I can have that to you in no time.
Okay.
Yep.
Consideration of job description, job advertisement, posting for a full-time deputy clerk. You have that in your packet. Is there any objection to that?
I would make a motion that, the town of Stokesdale, open up the advertising and application for the deputy clerk position. It's a full-time position, advertising the salary range of $35,000 to $45,000 per year based off experience.
I would add to that motion, Robbie, you're looking for your replacement. You're not going anywhere unless there's somebody to replace you. Okay?
Absolutely.
So,
I'm gonna start a company and hire Robbie.
And now,
I'll second that motion.
I do have some discussion, just
Yeah.
on the job description itself.
Yeah.
And if I'm missing it, please tell me where it's at, but I don't see in the duties where it talks about taking minutes.
okay, that would certainly need to be added. So with that, this job description that I put in there it's the most recent one that I could find that you all approved. It's pretty old.
Council approved, we
Correct.
did not.
Yes, sorry, town council approved. It was approved back in 2012 and revised in 17, so that was before most of your time. And I've made some notes to it myself of things that I would, like to see, and I believe minutes was actually one of them. So I agree with you on that, Councilman Rigsby, that minutes would have to be added on there.
You could put handyman skills on here. It might limit us a little bit.
Absolutely.
What'd he say?
Handyman skills.
At least being able to hang a mirror.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. The one that don't fit should have been returned.
Oh, Lord have mercy.
One, my concern, we say full-time. Technically, we're closed on Fridays. I'd like to see this position only be here Monday through Thursday.
32 hours.
Yeah.
Disagree. I disagree. That Friday is a day to catch up on the minutes and whatever else needs to be done. I think it's a work day. If the staff is able to take it off, then we'll leave that to Mr. Wagner's discretion.
Well, we didn't shut the doors. We were trying to do a little cost saving when we did that too.
Well, but this is a
And if
salary
it's-
position, Jim.
Oh, it's gonna be a salary?
That's what Mr. Foy was recommending. 35 to what?
45.
This is not an hourly,
This is 35 to 45,000 a year. It's a salaried position.
Did we put that much money in the budget?
I believe we put 41 in there for this year because we knew it wouldn't be a,
It's 36. We put 36 for the deputy clerk.
okay.
36,667 to be exact.
could you elaborate as to why it needs to be a salary position?
I really don't have a preference, Tim. I mean,
I'm just asking.
I didn't
We all
say-
got 5 different opinions.
I didn't say it had to be. I just said the salary range would be from 35 to 45.
Okay.
If
Mr.
you want to
Craw-
put a dollar per hour value to that,
Then that's what Ms. Crawford said, Mayor Crawford.
yeah.
It impacts how I vote here, so can we clarify this?
Yeah, I completely missed it. It went over my head.
So let me just play devil's advocate, because the salary, so if we're gonna treat this as a full-time employee, I think that's what I'm most interested in, is it gonna be a full-time employee or a part-time employee? Being a full-time employee, they're going to get vacation time and sick time, so would there ever be a reason for them to, I guess, technically be hourly? I mean, would there be a reason where they wouldn't work 40 hours or use approved leave time? Because anything short of that, it would, if we're out of leave time and they were less than 40 hours, it would probably kind of fall into a leave of absence or FMLA issue, I would think. So I mean, I guess that's where I'm trying to understand the difference between, if we're an hourly employee, to me, is usually somebody part-time, not getting benefits, something like that.
I mean, I have the opposite experience that, and there's a lot of hourly employees that work full-time and more and draw good benefits. So I think, to answer your question, the intent of the position, in my opinion, and I'm open to changing my mind, but the intent of the position is for this to be a full-time position. Now, whether it's 32 or 40 hours a week, those are both considered full-time position in terms of offering benefits. And so, if it was 30 hours a week, one may be able to make a case where benefits would not be offered, and maybe that would be a part-time position.
I mean, we know Miss Martin's gonna be vacationing, before long, and I know what we're, trying to do here. Thank God we've got her.
I guess, again, like what Mr. Jones said, it kind of dissuades my vote, what we're talking about, but if I'm gonna consider them full-time, then I would expect 40 hours a week, be full-time. That's just me. If we pay them hourly, or we just say they're on salary, I mean, at the end, they should make the same thing, because we're not gonna authorize overtime. Or would it be a situation where if we pay them hourly, we have to pay them overtime for meetings and stuff?
What is the minimum we have to pay for salary now? There is a minimum.
Yeah, it is. It's in the low 30s.
I'm not sure of what the minimum salary is. I think I know what the going rate for what is it, for the hourly rate. I'm trying to think of the term here.
I've got,
Minimum wage, yeah, that's what I'm thinking of. I know what that is, but I don't know what that comes out to. Seems like that's lower than 30.
That's like 15 or 16, I think.
You gotta remember too, the caliber of person we're trying to attract, I think, would be looking for a salaried position. That's just, that's my, that's just my opinion.
Well, I have to consider that maybe there's someone, I'll use the term with gray hair out there, that wants to slow down a little bit and would be more interested in a 32-hour week versus a 40-hour week, and would like to have that Friday off.
Well, quite frankly, I'd like to find somebody that's gonna replace Robbie. I'd like to find somebody at least his age, or maybe even younger,
Well, if they figure
that wants his job.
well, excuse me, if he's gonna be here 30 years, then they're gonna have to be, a little bit younger than him. I don't know, that's a long planning window.
But we have other positions that will be available. They should be, and they may not be in my administration, but there should be other positions available, whether it's for him or for his successor.
We can always spend more, we can always go up with hours, we can always hire more people. It's very difficult in government to go backwards.
Agreed. And, but again, if we hire someone, we're gonna hire them on a probationary period.
that term, what does that mean? I mean, really?
What does what mean?
Probationary period.
It's an option for the employer and the employee. You have 90 days.
We've always got that
We've
option.
always got it. If it's not working out, 90 days, 190
Exactly.
days.
Exactly.
But I cannot stand that term.
Mr. Wagner,
Yes, sir. Yes.
in your opinion of the amount of duties around town hall, what is your opinion as far as the number of hours this position needs to take up?
That's a good question. I mean, there's definitely plenty to do. I agree in that it is good. I know, for instance, on Fridays, that's typically when I try to schedule appointments and stuff like that. Most of the time, I'm here on Friday. It's especially having meetings on Thursdays. It's nice to have that Friday close to the public, to sit in your office, do work, and not have to worry about answering the phones, going up front, and meeting with the public. Not that I mind doing it, but it's nice to be able to tap into minutes and do that. As far as this position, I'm not sure. I look at it, I guess I look at it more as when I came on as deputy clerk. I came on salaried at 40 hours, And so my initial thoughts, when I see that job description, I just think of what I did of salary at 40 hours. That's just the way I look at it, and that could be biased because that's the way I came in, but
Robbie's being humble too when he says 40 hours. I drive by here
Oh, right, yeah.
in the evening right much, and
Robbie does a
his little
lot.
go-kart out there.
But also remember, when you came on, we had a part-time town clerk.
correct. Correct.
So you're a full-time town clerk.
You're not answering the question, Robbie.
That's correct.
So that being the case,
You know, that
would
is,
you not
that,
think 32 hours would,
I agree with
we
that.
can always go up.
Yeah, I agree. You know, I'm open-minded to anything, and that alone has persuaded me in that I think 32 would be more beneficial for this position, just because, like you say, you know, whenever it was Mrs. Martin in this position, and then me as her deputy clerk, she was on a part-time basis, and I was on a full-time basis. Now we're switching it. It would still be 2 full-time people here, 2 full-time staff members. Well, that's just deputy clerk and clerk, not including Priscilla. But, you know, I agree. I think that would be enough. I think 32 would be plenty. I agree.
Right,
Yeah.
okay.
And that doesn't mean that, you know, it's 32 hours. That doesn't mean 32 hours Monday through Thursday. That's what you would set. But if they needed to take off Monday and come in on Friday, it's good to have that ability to do that. They could take off a day and come in on Friday, you know. I'd like for them to have a set schedule of Monday through Thursday or, you know, whatever that schedule may be, that would be best, because that's when we're open to the public. But if they needed to take off a Monday or a Tuesday and come in on Friday to supplement it, they could. So that, the more I talk about it, the more I talk myself into the 32 hours.
Yeah, well, I mean, if they need to take off, they can take off.
Correct.
You know, I mean, if there's no reason for it, you know, there ends up being a reason,
Yeah,
then, you know, you can always come in.
yeah, absolutely.
But, you know, I mean, that was one of the reasons I voted for the closing down on Fridays.
Yeah, understood.
Was, you know,
I see it as offering an employee an additional perk that,
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
they can't find that just anywhere, so.
You're right, you're right.
I would like to try
I'm not sure
that.
we don't have another employee that'd like to be off on Fridays, I don't know, but, you know, well, and also if you ain't got so many people in the building, when you come in, you can get your stuff done.
Correct. It
Because you
is.
know how that goes.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
I
It
come
makes
in here, it
easier.
takes 15 minutes for me to get out the door because I'm talking to you, and I'm taking y'all's time up, and that's life.
We're
And
glad
then
to
I
have
come
you.
in
And then he
behind
comes
him.
in right behind me, and he just throws a monkey wrench in everything.
We're glad to have you.
Yeah, well.
Is this gonna be a salaried or hourly position?
Mr. Mayor, to answer your question a few minutes ago about the salary to be, the non-exempt for North Carolina, is $684 a work week, which comes to $35,568 a year.
To be salaried.
Yes, and that
Okay.
is, to be paid on a regular, fixed, and predetermined schedule.
At
for us to
36,
make.
at $36,000 a year, on a 40-hour week, it's $17 an hour. That's how it works out.
Now, I'd like to see you do something to get somebody in and then to give them somewhere to go. You know, don't give them the whole pie at one time. So we get somebody in that's,
Prove themselves and have
want
an
to prove themselves
opportunity
and
to.
have something to give them. Of course, you got to get somebody, so you got to keep that in mind, but.
Just trying to keep it simple. I think it's easier for Mr. Wagner to manage someone that's working by the hour was also on my mind as well.
Well, I'd like not to hire one, but I think we probably are gonna need one. I'd like just Robbie do it all on his salary, but I know that's not gonna,
I'll try.
I know that's not gonna happen. I mean, I'm being realistic.
Well, it's also a little more clear cut for our citizens out there. If they see an employee's work 12 hours a week versus 70 hours a week, that's finite. They can see that. It's just easier to account for.
Well, I'm gonna withdraw my motion. If you guys are more comfortable with an hourly fee, that's perfectly cool with me. What about if we, between $18 and $22 an hour, based off 32 hours a week?
That's a good range, depending on their qualifications.
All right, I'll make a motion that Town Clerk Robbie Wagner put together finalize the job description and begin advertising for the deputy clerk position. This is a full-time position with benefits at 32 hours per week. Range of $18 to $22 per hour, depending on experience.
Okay.
Now,
I'll second that motion, Mr. Foy. I'll second the motion.
Any discussion?
So just to be clear, we will be providing retirement and insurance.
He said with benefits.
Yes, that's correct, yeah.
At 32 hours, that's a full-time job, so we would need to offer them the same benefit package we offer our full-time employees.
Okay.
Any further discussion?
One point, where are we gonna advertise? Are we going to put it on a hot air balloon? We gonna put it on listserv, League of Municipalities?
Water tank.
Of course, Patty Stokes' paper, on the water tank, that would be good.
One question that does come to mind, I've just thought about this. This wasn't an issue that I've encountered here, but I've encountered it at a past municipality, is there were staff members that had a different working week hour. Some of us were 35, some were 40, just depended. And that did affect, it has an effect on your accrued time, your vacation time, your sick time. Having employees with different hourly, what they consider a work week, does change that. And it's not so much a big deal here, but it would be with the retirement system. With the retirement system comes sick time and stuff like that. If sick time is accrued at an hourly basis, then technically a 40-hour employee would accrue more sick time than a 32-hour employee would. Not so much an issue right now because we don't have an official sick time policy, but if that ever happens.
I'd like to be sure we're able to bend for, let's say, a mom that needed to pick up kids or drop kids off at certain times, let's say she needed to leave at 4:15 every day.
I understand. Oh, yeah, I understand.
well, that's the whole.
That's
reason
where
to have
you're
somebody
managing.
Here with you, because, either one of you, that gives y'all some
Yeah,
flexibility.
absolutely. Oh, yeah. Having a second person, I mean, just having a body
Yeah.
is helpful.
That's where your management skills come in.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
But Robbie's very astute to bring that point up, because that is, we
Yeah.
can manage it.
Okay,
here,
good.
but yeah.
All right, good. As far as advertising, newspaper, listserv's free. Let's see,
The league's pricey a little bit from what I recall.
it is. It's a price, but it does reach out to that special niche of people. I would,
Isn't there like a clerk,
listserv.
Yeah.
That's handy, and that's actually how I found out about the position, was through the clerk's listserv. So if you're wanting someone that's got a little bit of experience in local government, they'll be looking at two places. They'll be looking on the listserv if they already work for a municipality, and they'll be looking at the league's website, because if you were just an everyday citizen that doesn't particularly check the league's website, you wouldn't know to look there.
Yep, some people take a shotgun approach to applying for jobs.
Correct.
And then we have to filter all those.
Correct.
But that's what I'm saying. Let's ask for what we want from a venue that can produce that.
Correct.
And so, I can't remember how much the league advertisements are, but I tend to favor that a little
You
bit.
guys don't know anybody anywhere that wants to slow down a little bit and get a 4-day work week? So they can take a 3-day beach trip every week?
Well, when we put the word out, maybe we'll get them.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying, they might,
Yeah,
they know people in
absolutely.
government that, that might wanna work.
I did get a message from Mrs. Martin right now. She did advise against using Indeed again. That is it's a way to reach a wide range of people, but it's often just like you said, a shotgun approach. A lot of people apply at one time.
I've sorted through those resumes. Yeah, I tend to
good
agree
ones.
with Ms. Martin.
Any further discussion? We have a motion and a second. Mr. Rigsby?
Aye.
Mr. Foy?
Aye.
Mr. Landrith?
Aye.
Mr. Jones?
Aye.
And I am also aye. Clerk's authority for maintenance expense.
So again, I just want to just throw this out here to you. So at current time, correct me if I'm wrong, and I'll use these, the pest control thing, sometimes the duties of the clerk, can extend beyond just clerical stuff. And as we grow the park and as we grow, maintenance and stuff needs, I just want to make sure that we're not overburdening the process to get small things fixed. So, I just want to throw a discussion out there about maybe giving, Robbie, a spending authority up to $500 with, of course, communications to the council immediately, but not approval, but communications. If there's a maintenance need that needs to be done, such as, pest control, and I noticed in the separation of the duties, pest control is already in there, actually. Doesn't require a council vote, so for an animal, which would be bees, wasps, snakes, God forbid we get one of those in there. So, I was truly worried today when I was, crawling around bathrooms.
Well, I'm glad you got to do that, you get to see my point of view.
So, just something to get y'all's, discussion about, and, just so we're not, having to let things sit in waste until we can bring a council back together over small items, small water leaks in the park, things like that, things that we can get done. And the handyman, is a great point to that, if we have something like the mirror needs to be hung, that doesn't need to go through council. If it's within his spending authority, the handyman says, I can hang it for $150. Do we really need to have a council convene on that?
Well, big time spender Crawford, he at $25 an hour. This $500 would go.
So we could probably get the two things stained, roof
Yeah.
put on one of them and everything for.
25 an hour, where did that come
For
from?
$25 an hour.
Said it.
I said 25, I said I'd do it for
If we'd
25 an
have,
hour.
Ask him if his fee was
just sent that
$25
mirror
an hour.
back,
I said I'd do it for 25 an hour.
if we just sent
Now-
that mirror back, got the right one, we'd just hung it up on the one, on the thing that's there.
So,
Wouldn't have to pay anybody to do anything.
yeah, but, small things like that, I just think we need to put some thought in going forward of giving Robbie some authority to manage those situations without overburdening the council and his time and staff. Just the day-to-day stuff needs to be done.
Is that a motion?
I'll make that motion. I'll make a motion that, we authorize Robbie to spend up to $500 per incident with council communications prior to. And the purpose of the communications would be if, let's just use the mirror for the example. The mirror needs to be hung. Robbie's gonna send an email out and say, hey, we need to hang a mirror. I've got an estimate from the handyman for $300. And,
It would give me a
And
chance
give
to come
everybody-
in under, huh?
give everybody a chance and say, hey, I can hang that mirror, I'll come up and do it. So I'm all about saving money and stuff, but I don't wanna leave things, we keep leaving things sitting because nobody's doing it. And, so, he could email that out, say, here's, if nobody responds, let's say within a business day, then, he can go ahead and authorize it and get it done. Now, certainly if somebody says, hey, I'll go knock that wasp thing down, we don't need, we don't need to spend money, we don't have to, but if nobody's gonna do it, and there's not always gonna be a time that we have people on council that can do those kind of things. So I just wanna put something in place to where the town can function kind of independently of the council to a small extent.
Mr. Rigsby, I see your point of view, and I can't disagree with it, but I hesitate to change a system that the citizens have had working for them for many, many years. So I'm a little torn about it. I see your points.
And I'm certainly.
And we don't know, who may be elected this November. We could, this town might greatly benefit from their volunteerism, or it could go the other way.
And I'm certainly, open to limits and adjustments. I'm just throwing some ideas out there. It just seems like we do let some things sit around for a while that, he could probably handle, for $100 or whatever, I don't know how much it's gonna cost to hang that mirror, but, but we've sat and debated that mirror for almost a year now, or 6 months, and we still ain't got it hung. And,
But your motion includes his notification.
Yeah, oh, yeah. So,
Of
yes,
council.
So he would notify when he needs something done, unless it's just an emergency. There's nothing wrong with him emailing council and saying, hey, I need to get this water fountain hung. got an estimate, whatever, he can go ahead and just reach out and get an estimate, so he has that information to give to us.
Yeah.
And if somebody says, hey, I can do that, like Mr. Jones said, I got some experience in roofing, I'll go look at it, then that's fine. You know, that stifles Robbie, he doesn't need to pay that guy. Mr. Jones is gonna look at the roof, and we're all good, but at least it kind of gives us notice to where, A, what is the problem, so we all know what the problem is, and B, you know, that, if one of us can't do it in a timely manner, then we've got to, you know, we need to get it done. We don't need to let it keep sitting. The door, for instance, the door hanging up down there. Yeah. You know, that's something that, I mean, we need to fix that. We don't need to all talk about it anymore. Or if we can't fix it, then we need to pay somebody to fix it.
I second your motion. Any further discussion?
Robbie, do you want to have that responsibility?
Truthfully, yes, simply because it would expedite things. It is, sometimes it can be a nuisance. When something's tore up, you know it's tore up. We don't have the time to fix it or maybe the resources to fix it. Sometimes citizens let us know that, and it's just kind of one of those things like, hey, we would fix it, but we're just kind of waiting on council approval. This would just kind of bypass that. And when I say that, my first thought is just the most recent one, that being the Hornet's Nest. We had quite a few folks, you know, call about it. Not the one that you removed, Mr. Landreth, the one that was on the
Which one?
walking trail.
There quite a few of them lately.
There has been quite a few. This was a pretty large one on the walking trail. We had quite a few folks come in here, knock on the door, tell us about it, email us, message us on Facebook. And you know, luckily, Kellum just came and did it for free. We just mentioned it to them when they were here spraying, and it was no issue. But it would expedite things. I mean, anything we can do to make things move faster is fine with me.
Tim actually came down, I guess the night y'all had it done, because the nest was still laying there with some bees in it, I believe. We were gonna come because we wanted 2 people. Because, you know, one of us fell down, the other one, we called 911.
Somebody needs to
But
film.
I didn't make it. He came down and had pictures of it and all, but he did show up to.
Yeah. Well, and
I would have had it.
Yeah,
But,
yeah, he would have had it, but.
It's okay.
He did, you know.
we did spray it. Mrs. Hunsucker and I went out there and sprayed, but as Mr. Jones and I
understand they're
spoke,
getting
that spray is.
They're getting a bid together, or a quote on spraying, going around and keeping it sprayed for wasp. I don't know if that's, you know, I don't know if it's worth doing or anything else, but we'll at least know if it's $10 extra a month or something, it'd probably be worth doing.
I sure don't disagree about the hazards of bees and what have you.
Yeah.
Just we've always been able to manage that effectively and get it done by doing it ourselves. So that's another step in the direction of a higher budget for me to get into a bee contract.
Yeah, understood. I understand. Right now, you know, we've had the same contract with them for quite some time, so, you know, that's nothing that's changed. I don't see it changing, but we can get prices. I mean,
So he's working on an on-call contract or?
No.
It'll be a monthly maintenance, monthly bee maintenance contract.
Not quite, no. So at this time, the only thing that they service is town hall, inside and outside. Whenever he was up here, he said, you guys really need to consider having the shelters and the concession stand sprayed for a couple reasons. One, concrete holds moisture. It brings bugs in. Two, people eat at those facilities. We don't clean them necessarily. I mean, you know, they're outside. It's not like we have to clean them regularly, but it attracts bugs. And so it would be more of a quote to spray here and spray there, park versus and town hall. Versus just town hall.
We used to pressure wash them. Maybe we have stopped that. We used to do that periodically. Well, you know, again, I don't want to see anybody get bee stung, but I've been risking Mr. Lander if he's been taking care of that at night rather effectively, so I hesitate to.
I don't get to them as quick as.
And you know,
sometimes, but we normally get there.
The pressure washing is a great example. I mean, I don't know how much it costs to pressure wash those 2 things. Probably $200 or so.
If the mayor does it, it's $25 an hour.
Yeah, so, and he can do the whole town. For
And I have a pressure washer.
But if, you know, if we get citizens that are coming up here and saying, hey, we got bees down there.
Can't get
those
good
still,
help anymore,
you know, that's where I see an advantage for Robbie to be able to pick the phone up and call, let's say the handyman pressure washes, I don't know if he does or not. Call him and say, hey, can you come pressure wash the pads real quick? You know, tell me how much it's gonna be, if it's under my authority, come pressure wash that. That's the day-to-day stuff that we don't really necessarily need to be involved in. Now, certainly, he can email that out and say, just been notified, the paths need to be cleaned. I'm going to notify the handyman if I don't hear from a councilman that wants to do it. You know, I don't have a pressure washer personally, but if I did, I mean, I wouldn't have a problem coming up here and doing it.
You can
but,
borrow mine. I'll let you use mine.
It's too much liability in using somebody else's tools. But sure enough,
I wouldn't
sure
hold it
by the
against
time I
you.
hit
I
that button,
believe
that
that.
thing
I'll give
spray
you a
off.
waiver. I wouldn't hold it against you.
So, I used to man's lawnmower one time and
I
got
got
back
one
to
I'll
him
give
and
you.
didn't even have a seat on it when he gave it to me,
come
and he
up and do
complained about the condition of it.
I
when
never
got it
loan
back.
anything I'm not willing to give away, and I never borrow anything I'm not willing to replace.
But just that little stuff like that, you know, that we shouldn't have to debate over. I'm not talking anything big, you know, certainly if it's something big, we need to
Yeah,
discuss
but it would be the kind of thing we'd ask
but just
Gordon to
more
do.
maintenance and more necessary to make the place a little bit better to the citizens. Don't look broke
Back,
down.
back to where we started. What was that, Mr. Rigsby, your motion, the amount again
I motioned $500.
per occurrence?
That's more than we had.
Well,
But that's more than we had.
well,
He could just call you and you could okay it, but that's okay. You
Yeah.
know what? We can always stop it if it gets out of control. What you gotta be careful about, Rob, is people coming up complaining about things that don't actually have to be done.
Understood.
And then run out and start spending a lot of money.
Understood,
You know,
absolutely.
I just don't want you to put yourself in a position where you,
and again, email notification on each incident prior to.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Would be required of that.
At least one of us.
Yeah.
At least one of us.
no,
just
send it
out-
out, send it to all
I'll
of
get-
us. I
yeah,
mean,
I'll
we
send
don't
it
have
to
to
everybody.
respond, and we're not.
Send
it's
it,
not a-
send it out to all if you need
Just send
to.
it out to all. One of us might be willing to do it, and if we're not, then he can get it done.
Yeah.
And then that,
And we
and that
know-
covers him, because he sent an email and nobody's objected, somebody can object. And say,
Aye.
Robbie, don't do it, you know?
I seconded that motion. Mr. Rigsby?
Aye.
Mr. Foy?
Aye.
Mr. Landrith?
Aye.
Mr. Jones?
No.
And I am aye. We're open for citizens' comments. Anyone? The floor is yours. Very good. We are going into closed session in accordance with statute 143-318.11, closed sessions, permitted purposes. It's a policy of the state. We are to consult with the attorney employed or retained by the public body in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege between the attorney and the public body, with which privilege is hereby acknowledged.
Was that a motion to go into closed session?
I'm sorry, that was a motion.
And that was the permitted purposes in the motion?
Permitted purposes in the motion is the,
You don't have to repeat it, but what you just said?
yes.
Okay, second.
I'm gonna learn this yet.
Who's asked for this closed session?
I don't know.
Okay,
Do we have any discussion?
The attorney?
that was all the discussion I had.
I think this was asked by the attorney. Mr. Rigsby?
Aye.
Mr. Foy?
Aye.
Mr. Landrith?
Aye.
Mr. Jones?
Aye.
And I am also aye. Thank you, folks. Appreciate your attendance. I'm sorry. If I may, the Town of Stokesdale Town Planning Board will hold a regular meeting on Thursday, July 27th at 7 PM in the Town Hall. The Town of Stokesdale Town Council will hold a regular meeting on Thursday, August the 10th at 7 PM inside the Town Hall. That's
Do we
it.
want to have council comments?
We can do that afterwards.
Okay.
We'll do that after our soiree.
here.
Kickbacks is not my business.
I make a motion, we go into open session.
I'll second.
Mr. Rigsby,
I just like to thank everybody coming out tonight.
we're not
Gotta
there
go
yet.
back. You gotta vote.
Open session. Mr. Foy,
Aye.
Mr. Landrith, Mr. Jones,
Aye.
and I'm an aye, and we have time for council comments. Mr. Rigsby.
I'd just like to thank for everybody coming out tonight. It's, I've always said that the small and local government is the most important in most people's lives because they affect your day-to-day, living where your family spends time and such. And, so it's always important to be involved in your local government. Just like the gentleman from the school board, that is, for those of us that have kids, that's probably 80% of our conversations throughout the years, something to do with the schools. And so appreciate his coming tonight and filling us in. So just like also just follow up that I have filed to run for reelection, and hopefully the other two councilmen will follow suit.
Mr. Foy.
Let's see, I want to thank Mr. Goble for coming and staying with us the duration of the meeting. Thank staff, thank council. Congratulate Jim for throwing his name in the hat to run for reelection. I think that's a great choice. I'm glad you did it. I pray that Jimmy does it too. From my perspective, I'm just going to keep it, thoughtful prayer. I know I got to make a decision here. In 8 days, I go back and forth. I do enjoy it. I really do. I enjoy the guys, enjoy working with staff, and do think that we're making a difference for the positive. I just come to the point where, I often feel like I need to, the wagon's full and I feel like I need to take a load off the wagon. And this would probably be the thing if I chose to do that. So again, thoughtful prayer for the next 8 days. And I know I need to know, but I truly don't know because I go back and forth. And it's keeps me up at night, but I'll continue to, give it good thought, and that's it. But I do pray that Jimmy does it, and I'm so thankful that Jim is doing it again. Those guys have just been fantastic to work with, and no matter what I choose to do, if they choose to do it, that's a huge win for the town.
Mr. Landrith.
Well, I'm just glad to be here. I'm talking about the town, I love this town. I've been here all my life, went to school, all the way through, Northwest. And, I love the town. I hear people say negative things about it sometimes, and it kind of ticks me off. I don't have anywhere that I want to go to. I want to stay. I hope the town will stay as small as it can, and people still have rights to do things. And I don't plan on going anywhere as far as out of town. I may go out of here, but I do. I love this town. I think that council has done a good job, and I've enjoyed being on it with you guys. I'm glad Jim's re-upped. I feel comfortable that we'll have at least 3 people here that carry on some of the things like the water line projects that we got going. I'm glad we got that done tonight. I think that was a good step if we're going to do that. I'm not excited about the way we get money sometimes, but that's the way the game's played, and we have to do it that way or not have anything. So thank everybody for coming. Robbie, you're doing a good job.
Thank you.
You had a good teacher.
Mr. Jones.
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll speak to the one citizen we have left. Thank you for sitting through all this. Always, it would feel funny to talk to empty seats. I'm always appreciative of staff and Mr. Winfrey. July the 4th has passed, and I've reflected a lot on the town and our Constitution. I get a little criticism from time to time. A citizen came through this evening complaining about my use of Robert's Rules of Orders. Well, I have guidebooks for Robert's Rules of Orders, and I'll deal with it when I have to. what I use when I'm trying to make a decision to represent the citizens, I'm trying to rise above myself. I'm just an individual, but I use my Bible and the United States Constitution. And policies and Robert's Rules of Order fall under that in my book. And if I think there's an issue or a disturbance or what have you, I will continue to call for a point of order. The other 4 council members may outvote me. The chair may not recognize that, but that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to try to do the right thing, use my best judgment in serving the citizens. And I certainly, come what may, I hope the 3 new council members that are elected this fall have a heart for Stokesdale and for our citizens, not necessarily for this town government. Government is one thing. I tend to agree with Mr. Landorf. I love our town, but someone shouldn't confuse that into I love our town government. Government's just a necessary evil, as it were. So anyhow, thank everybody.
I'd like to thank Mr. Rigsby for re-upping. I do appreciate that. I think in my tenure, we've had a very good council. We've had a very good workable council. I would pray that Mr. Foy will reconsider. I know his concerns, and I wish him well in whatever he does, and I know he will do well. But I think we could use him another 4 years. Mr. Landreth, I would hope that you too would consider. You're a valuable additive to this, and I promise you I won't bring up using what was I
General
using?
fund.
General funds. I promise I won't bring that up again, okay? That was a mistake, and I do apologize. But for me, it's been a very good time. I never expected to be a politician, although I joked about it at one time. But I never expected to be in this kind of a position. But I have enjoyed it, and I hope I've added something. Mr. Jones and I, we don't need to be left alone. So, Mr. Rigsby, I hope you're going to be back. Can't think of anything else other than thank you, Bill. Appreciate you staying. Didn't have to, but, the other thing, Mr. Wagner, if you would pull my car into the portico up there, please, and I would appreciate that.
I want to add one more thing, Mike. It's great to have you back. I know you were a little bit under the weather, and it's great to have you here. And
Absolutely.
And I hope things go uphill for you, and you're here the rest of the time.
I appreciate that. I think I'm on the way back around. It kicked my behind, but I think I'm on the road to recovery.
Well, keep on kicking, my friend.
All right, I appreciate that. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Rigsby?
Aye.
Mr. Foy?
Aye.
Mr. Landrith?
Aye.
Aye.
Jones? And I am aye.
I'm glad you're gonna be back, 'cause I don't want to have to get a super breast or anything. Trying to cut back on my dry cleaning.